And good morning. It is a Thursday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn. Griffin's back today. Wish there was something pleasant to talk about, but that's not the case, as the Orioles get pummeled last night by the Brewers 10-2. Basketball game wasn't all that interesting either. I mean, if you're a Nuggets fan, it certainly was interesting, but from a competition standpoint, it wasn't all that interesting.
Well, I mean, if Bruce Brown had scored 10 points, it would have been more interesting.
Ah, what'd you have on that?
I mean, a couple of dollars.
Well, I don't know how I feel about that being the way that you're spending your evening, is living and dying over Bruce Brown's points. That seems a bit odd, but you know what? I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. There are still some more percolating DeAndre Hopkins rumors that we can talk about today, and we'll get into that for sure. But the Orioles now 9 of their last 12 games where they have scored 3 runs or fewer. 9 of their last 12 games, 3 runs or fewer. Coming up, by the way, in a few minutes, Dan Duquette's going to join us. It's been a while since we caught up with Dan. We're going to do that this morning. We'll make a Bowie trip today. We'll catch up with their play-by-play voice, Matt Sabados. Sabados or Sabados? No, I don't remember. I'll double-check on that. Or, we'll find it. I know it's not Sabados. Okay, we're going to spend way too much time on this. Let me move forward.
That is what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's not that.
Okay.
All right, so here's the deal. I got a ton of traction on this tweet last night. Looking like the Orioles about to hit 9 out of 12. This was in the 7th inning before they even scored their 2 runs, which they ultimately scored in the 9th inning. Looking like the Orioles about to hit 9 out of 12 games, scoring 3 or fewer runs. Just not sure Josh Lester is going to be the spark to lift them out of the funk. It feels like returning home this weekend should be the moment for reinforcements. And it's easy to continue to say, hey, this is baseball, this is the way that it goes, and today could be the day, and they could end up scoring 12 runs today, and then wouldn't you feel silly about that? No. No. Because then it would just be 9 out of 13 games. And was pointed out by a couple people who responded to that one. Even the 3 games where they scored runs, it felt like it was all about 1 inning. And by the way, that doesn't mean it doesn't count. I'd be happy if they scored 8 runs a game and all of the 8 runs came in 1 inning in every game. That would be just fine by me. If they went 8 innings of every game without scoring runs, as long as in the other inning they scored 8 runs every time. That would be phenomenal. There is enough of a sample size to realize there's a problem here. And it is combined with the other end of the problem, which is that there is just no... I remember talking about the idea that perhaps they were keeping Jordan Westburg down for trade purposes. Unless that trade is coming tomorrow, there's no reason for that to continue. And I can't fathom what trade would be coming tomorrow. And as much as we believe this team needs another starting pitcher, and don't get me wrong, I think they need another starting pitcher, we're at the point where even if we still assume that they're getting Cedric Mullins back in a couple of weeks, and I don't know, we haven't seen an update on that just yet, but even if we assume that's the case, it's pretty clear at this point that this team needs offensive reinforcements as well. If you're concerned about Jordan Westburg as he comes up and he scuffles and that limits his value and you have identified him as your most tradable chip, if the Orioles internally have said the guy we think we can use in order to land our top-notch starting pitcher is Westburg, because we don't think that Norby is going to get us what we want, and we don't believe that we want to deal anybody else. Westburg's the guy. That's all well and good. I can accept that to some stretch of the imagination, although, I don't know, I am starting to wonder if his value is greater in a trade or if his value is greater here. Like, I do think that building a championship team, the Orioles still need top-of-the-rotation pitching. So I'm in a tough spot here, because if you're not going to trade Westburg, it is fair. I don't know right now what's getting you that type of piece. Could Colton Cowser get you that? Sure, but do you really want to trade Colton Cowser right now? I don't think so. I think you believe that Colton Cowser is a part of this moving forward. So I don't think Hauser is a piece that you want to touch. I sure as hell don't think you're trading Gunnar Henderson. It's got to be that caliber of a prospect. I don't think you want to trade Heston Kjerstad. I don't think that anything more that Jordan Westburg does at AAA can improve his value. I don't think there's anything else he can do. I think it's abundantly clear that Jordan Westburg has proven and graduated. Is it possible that he comes up and he plays here for a month and it depreciates? I guess it's possible.
Like, would teams really change?
Most teams know that
Right.
guys tend to scuffle for the first month of their major league experience.
So if he struggles for 3 weeks, would teams really be that down on him that they wouldn't even want to trade? Like,
I would find that unlikely.
Right.
I would find that unlikely. Now, I get why it's complicated, and I get that they're trying to value two things at the same time. But at some point, this offense needs a jolt. They also might fear that if they bring up Jordan Westburg and he's pummeling the ball, then it's more difficult to trade him because this fan base would go nuts at that point.
but then, I mean, then you have a guy that's good.
I understand that, but, if that's what's lifting the offense up, I get that it's complicated. I get that it's not easy. But I also think that there's a first problem that has to be solved. The first problem is you have to recognize offensively you don't have it. You don't have it. The juice isn't there. And you can believe that there's more to come from Gunnar Henderson. You can believe that you can get better from Ryan Mountcastle, although I think we're starting to Mountcastle and Mateo are the guys that we're starting to just wonder if you're ever going to get better from. And Mateo at a horrendous level, Mountcastle at a level where at least there's still a lot of power there, a fair amount of power there. But I think it's fair to wonder about those two guys and what the level is that you're going to get from those guys. Ever, as far as this plan. It's time. It's time. It's time for reinforcements. And coming home provides the opportunity. Somebody could say, well, they get to face the Royals. Maybe that alone could get their bats going, and maybe that's why they don't want to do anything drastic. There's nothing drastic about calling up guys that are ready for the major leagues. That's not drastic. It would be drastic to call up Heston Kjerstad. That would be drastic. That would be reactive. That would be absurd. But matching an offensive funk with it's probably an appropriate time to call one or two of these guys up, that's not drastic. That's realistic. That's making a good baseball decision. Well, I don't know where they're going to play every day. Well, it's time to stop worrying about protecting guys that continue to show us that they're not likely part of this thing long term. Now, that is the dramatic part of this, and we talked about that yesterday with Zach. The dramatic side of this is that if you call up Colton Cowser, you would say, well, one, Aaron Hicks has been hot. God bless, over a couple of games. We had fun with that with Would You Rather Wednesday yesterday, but nobody needs to actually protect Aaron Hicks. And if you want to run Aaron Hicks out there for a little while, because you do know that Cedric Mullins is going to come back at some point, and he will take another outfield spot. So if you call up Colton Cowser and you want to run Aaron Hicks out in right field and have Santander play first base, that you found another way to skin a cat. Congratulations. I'm not opposed to that being the solution here, if you're inclined to keep Aaron Hicks in the lineup. Now, I get it. It's dramatic because you're essentially saying there's no longer going to be at-bats every day for Ryan Mountcastle. I don't think Ryan Mountcastle was ever going to be a valuable trade chip. I don't know that Ryan Mountcastle is ever going to prove to be an everyday player for a high-level championship caliber team. I worry that Ryan Mountcastle is a guy with some pop that on a bad team that doesn't have to worry about where at-bats come from could pad his stats and put up 35 home runs, but he's going to strike out a ton in the process of doing it, and that is going to be so detrimental to a good team that I just don't know that you have to worry about guaranteeing him at-bats. Now, to be clear, if you want to rotate guys, you can always find, this is a Brandon Hyde team that we're talking about. You're always going to be able to find at-bats for Ryan Mountcastle. You can find them. But guaranteeing him an everyday spot, I'm not sure that I'm worried about that anymore.
So start platooning at first base, kind of, and
maybe
that even works. Make Mountcastle out of the lineup more and more until
maybe or
he's
Again, because
he's Chris Carter.
The second, it's essentially what I'm kind of getting at, is that I think that just might be what we're learning. And look, maybe somebody would say it's too early to say that, to commit to that. Fine, but it's not like this is new. Like, we'd have to go over Ryan Mountcastle's on base percentage. Hang on a second.
And I mean, I guess what makes it kind of tougher is that he is a good base runner. Like, he's got some speed. He's an athlete.
He's not an asset as a base runner, though.
Right.
Outside of the 35 games that he played in that 2020 season, the pandemic season, where, in that stretch, he was producing all over the place. He was the 309, 305 on base percentage guy. Like, to say that he's not abysmal, this has been the worst that we've seen from Ryan Mountcastle in his career, is fair. And I can certainly understand why the Orioles would say, well, we don't want to commit to this being the answer, because we do think the answer might be closer to, say, 2021, when he was getting on base at a 309 clip and, hit 33 home runs, which is not otherworldly by any stretch of the imagination, but is certainly good enough. You can live with that. But that's the high end that we've got on Ryan Mountcastle. I'm not worried about that. Again, it's dramatic. I understand this dramatic side is if you make a move to bring someone up, and my real answer would be right now, you wouldn't guarantee Aaron Hicks at bats. Aaron Hicks would be the guy that would suffer from this. You let Anthony Santander continue to play in right field, and Ryan Mountcastle will continue to play him out of first base. But if the flexibility is there, that if it means a couple more off days for Ryan Mountcastle,
you live with that.
Yeah, obviously. I'm going to live with that. I continue to say that everybody that thinks the answer on Westburg is Mateo, I think there's zero chance of that. If the Mateo decision is made, I believe it's made for Joey Ortiz. Period. I think they value defense entirely too much, and I'm not even really knocking that. It's not even me second-guessing it. I think if Mateo goes, he only goes for Ortiz. Which then leaves you with the question of, well, where then Westburg? And it's a fair question. Are you punting Arias, who again is a high-level defensive player? I'm not sure that I think that's the end of the world if that's the case. I get wanting to prioritize defense. I certainly get it with as flimsy as your pitching is. But there's got to be a line between these two things. There's got to be found a line between offensive and defense. And ultimately, I think it's why a lot of people thought that the immediate answer to Mullins would be call up Westburg and then move everybody as necessary. If you want to wait on Cowser, fine, but get Westburg up here first. It's easier to do one and then continue to monitor these guys and see who's settling into a role and see who's performing nicely and go from there. But this isn't I don't think you can say this is a blip on the radar anymore offensively. They have a problem. Sure, they faced Corbin Burns last night. Like, I'm not trying to ignore that. Or pretend like they haven't faced other good pitchers in this process. Alex Cobb's had a really nice season. I don't know how good he is, but he's having a nice season. They face good pitchers. That's
Texas rotation looks really good.
Without
DeGrom.
Yeah,
that's
obviously terrible news for them, but in general, correct. I'm not trying to dismiss that, but they're going to face good. We're not measuring this in, oh, gee, shucks, these are the little guys, and it's just such a shame for them to have to face all these good pitchers. That's what you have to do in order to win.
What happens when you get to the playoffs?
In order to get there, in order to win something of significance, you're going to have to face good pitchers all season. The answer can't just be, well, we're not going to be good if the team faces good pitchers. Sure, we all know that sometimes you're just not going to have a night. But we're talking about a stretch of 2 weeks now, of 2 weeks of largely offensive futility. And they still managed to win some games in the process. It's remarkable they went and took 2 out of 3 in San Francisco. And, I credit the fact that they figured out ways to stay afloat through this. But at some point, something has to be done. It can't just be continuously sitting around and waiting when what are you waiting for? Like, nobody is saying kick Gunnar Henderson out of the lineup. We get it. Gunnar Henderson is supposed to be part of the solution.
But you're waiting for Adam Frazier to, like, figure out how to be a leadoff hitter all of a sudden?
But I'm not kicking Adam Frazier out of the lineup. Adam Frazier is too valuable for this team. I'm not kicking Adam Frazier out of the lineup either.
As just a vet.
They take his cues. He comes up with big hits. He's a professional. Like, he has the right approach that you want. Adam Frazier's not the problem. But it doesn't need to be for Aaron Hicks. And we're getting closer to the point where it doesn't need to be for Ryan Mountcastle. And we can debate about whether or not it certainly doesn't need to be for Josh Lester, right? Like, we know that. And I think we know, as fun of a story as it's been, it doesn't need to be for Ryan O'Hearn.
Well,
I get it. It's been a fun story, and I understand, like, he's come up with some big – and nobody's saying –
all the fringe guys.
Nobody's saying run him off the team. No one's saying hang him in effigy, although I get it. If you're calling up guys, somebody's got to go. I do understand that. But, like, you don't need to be coming up with regular – that doesn't need to be a priority for a team at this point, is regular at-bats. You can find appropriate times for Ryan O'Hearn to get at-bats. You got to try to push some buttons right now. It is, as we were talking about with John Mioli, this is more of a critical time where it feels like can you stay viable until whatever clicks, until you can make a trade, whatever that is. And it's looking more and more difficult the longer you stay in these offensive funks. And again, I know that Cedric Mullins' return would be the single best thing that could help this baseball team. And we always had to accept that there was going to be a major pain that came with losing Cedric Mullins. You can't lose the guy that's leading your team in WAR and just be like, well, everybody else, he's their best player. That was going to hurt. Period, it was going to hurt. That's the way it works. That's baseball. The Yankees aren't going to be as good without Aaron Judge while he's gone. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to lose every game or that they don't have other professionals, but you can't just lose your best player and say, well, everything will be fine. And you can, pull up but stop. It doesn't work that way. And it's also a reminder that the Orioles were a bit flimsier than everyone else. They were being held up by the fact that Cedric Mullins was such a rock star to start the season. It's not doom and gloom. I get it. The Orioles still have the third best record in baseball. Like, I'm not trying to make this seem like a panic, but it's time to start thinking about pushing the appropriate buttons. And the Orioles coming home this weekend, no matter what happens today in the finale, is the appropriate time for there to be a button pushed. It's time. At least one. It might be time for multiple, but at least one of these buttons to try to find something that can ignite and by the way, even accept if it's going to take time for these guys to get adjusted to the major league level, I'd rather that happen in June than in August.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. Let's see if they can be productive in August.
So since you demanded it, I'm sure they'll call up Cole Irvin now.
Well, I mean, they also need a fifth starter for Saturday, so they're probably going to have to call up Cole Irvin. I mean, I literally don't know at this point. Like, Grayson Rodriguez is apparently his window would not be there yet. Now, they can always have somebody – like, they can say to Josh Lester, hey, real shame about that pothole you stepped in. Like, they can always put someone on the IL in order to make a move for Grayson Rodriguez. But, like, without that, Grayson Rodriguez wouldn't be able to be up. And it's clearly it's not going to be Bruce Zimmerman now. So I just don't know what else there is at this point. I think Irvin is scheduled to start tomorrow for Norfolk, but – that's all messed up because they haven't been playing games with air quality issues this week, so I don't even know how that works out. Look, I assume it's going to be Cole Irvin starting on Saturday. I assume that's how this plays out. Today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Again, Orioles Brewers wrap up the series this afternoon, just after 2 o'clock. Kyle Bradish on the mound against Colin Rea as they try to avoid the sweep before they head home to begin a series against the Royals tomorrow night. always appreciate opportunities to catch up with our next guest. He, of course, was the architect of the Orioles teams that found so much success in the teens and were the winningest team in the American League there for a span of 5 years. He is, of course, former Orioles general manager or executive vice president of baseball operations, if I have it correctly. He is our friend Dan Duquette, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Dan, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Hi, Glenn. How are you?
I'm well.
Good to be with you.
How are you, my friend? What's going on in Dan Duquette's world these days?
We've been spending a lot of time in North Carolina. We got a couple of young boys playing ball down here, and one of them's in the Legion program. The other one is playing ball, and I've been doing some consulting work. I got a couple of clients in and around Major League Baseball, and a couple of other institutional clients, and that's what we've been doing.
All right. What part of North Carolina are you in?
We live outside Wilmington.
Okay.
Beautiful spot.
Oh, that's a nice part.
Yeah, a lot of people move here from the Northeast.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
It's beautiful. Absolutely. That is a beautiful part. Are you a barbecue guy, Dan?
Yeah, I like to. I got a grill out back. I got a grill for my birthday. We had a nice grill up in the Cape where we sold our house, and we did a lot of grilling out in the back. And we left the grill there. And for my birthday a couple of weeks ago, my wife got me a nice grill down here. So we've been leveraging that. Yeah, that's one of our favorite things to do.
I love that. That sounds like a decent way to spend time, man. It sounds pretty good to me. Dan, it's so much of a lot of stuff I want to cover with you, but I just want to start with a couple of guys that I know are really important to you. And one, it's been unfortunate because Cedric Mullins has been hurt of late, but the start that we saw him get off to this season, to me, is even more important than the 30-30 year that he had a couple years ago, because I think we all knew that 30 home run mark was not going to be the story of Cedric Mullins, and I think we all knew a few things about the baseball that season, so I don't think it was reasonable to judge him by 30 home runs. But the guy that we've seen this year that's just been exceptional has been getting on base and stealing bases and superb range in the outfield and hitting with runners in scoring position and the heart and soul of a winning baseball team. When did you know that Cedric Mullins had the ability to be a special type of baseball player?
Well, what he did 30-30, I mean, nobody's ever done that before. So that tells you the uniqueness of his skill set, right? I mean, this guy can do it. Obviously we liked him. He was he was short. We liked him so much we drafted him twice and we couldn't get him signed the first time. But Rich Morales did a great job with him, and so did Matt Haas, our cross-checker. Rich did the legwork in North Carolina. The kid went to Campbell, and he went to Lewisburg. And then Matt Haas had cross-checked him the first year we drafted him, and we came back and got him the second year. But he was short in height, but he was always strong. And then he to his credit, he got even stronger when he got into pro ball, and then his career really took off when he focused on hitting, from the left side. He always had the tools. When he signed, he had the tools minimum to be a fourth outfielder, and the way he's developed his offensive skills in his overall game, he's one of the better all-around players in the big leagues. And that's a credit to him and the work that he's done, frankly.
Right.
I was disappointed to see him get hurt. He was having such a great year, but hopefully he'll be back again soon.
Dan, I was talking to Adam about this the other day. They are different baseball players, right? Like, they don't have the same skill set. But I remember the electricity for the city, for the ball club, the day that you guys announced the extension for Adam in 2012. Like, what that did for everyone was overwhelming, right? Like, it was a time where, we didn't know exactly how committed. Like, we didn't know what to make of anything yet. And then all of a sudden, Adam, signs to an extension, and everything about, our perception of the Orioles changes in that moment. And I'm wondering if, it feels like that would be an appropriate parallel right now for the Orioles and Cedric Mullins to say, it's time, invest, plant your flag with this guy for 5 to 6 years, and let everybody know this is the heart and soul of the franchise. Yes, Adley Rutschman's a hell of a baseball player, but this is the guy, and let everyone know we're serious in the process.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to give that message to the fans that these are our guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be the heart and soul of the team. They're going to be the core members of our team, and you can depend on them being out there when you come out to support the Orioles for the next, several years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought it was important to do that because I had seen in Montreal, we had great players, but we didn't have the economic wherewithal to keep them all together for a long period of time. And I saw the cost to the organization when you summarily dismiss these players and send them somewhere else, right? And the fans, they develop an affinity for a player. That's how they connect with the team for a lot of people. And it's important to know that they can depend on that player being there, right, as part of their team.
Yep.
So I think you make a good point. When I went to Boston, I thought it was important for us to put a stake in the ground and say, these are our guys. And fortunately, we drafted Nomar with our first draft pick. He came up. He won a couple of batting titles. And he was, the most identifiable player that we had on that team at shortstop. He played every day. And then we went and we traded for Pedro, and we signed him long term. And those were the two core guys that we were going to build around in Boston, right? I mean, that's who the fans like. They like the big-time players. They like the superstars.
Yep. And by the way, it worked out okay for them, by the way.
Yeah, right. It worked out good because of those players, right? Yeah. They were great players, and they had great. They were elite players. They had great careers, right? Nomar was a two-time batting champ, right-handed. The last guy to do that before him was Joe DiMaggio. So, and then Pedro's, the uniqueness of his career, of course, he made the Hall of Fame. He's the best pitcher of his era, for one of the best pitchers in the history of the game for 5-year period. But anyway, Adam was a young core player. He was a center fielder that could hit. And not only could he hit and play the field, he had power. And he was just learning to put all his skills together. And when I got to Baltimore, I looked at all the players that we had within the organization. I looked at it and I said, well, who can we really build with, and who has some leadership capability to lead our team? And Adam was the man, right? He stood out. He had made a commitment to the city. Yeah, I didn't know him before I got there, but I knew his father-in-law, Gene Fugit,
of course,
who had played football at Amherst like and Gene Fugit had started under Bob Brown, who was another Amherst guy, and Gene Fugit used to do the pinch hitter statistics for Earl Weaver when he was an intern years ago. So I knew the family, right? I knew Adam's family because, Adam married Gene's daughter. Yeah. But Adam thrived in that role. He was a leader on the team. He put a stake in the community. He was a leader in the community. He was an inspirational player. And, we had some good years together. And could the Orioles do that now with the core players they have? I'm sure they could if they decided they wanted to put a stake in the ground. The catcher, of course, is a candidate.
Yep.
Cedric Mullins is a candidate. You got to take a look at all the risk factors. But, if you're going to complete that pack with the fans where you say, we are going to be competitive, we're going to put a stake in the ground, and for the next 5 years, these are a couple of our guys. Then you can go ahead and sign them up.
Dan Duquette is with us here on GCR. Dan, the parallel is even more interesting to me because, I almost see. I have no doubt that you guys wanted to keep Manny Machado around, right? But it was a little bit of a more difficult thing to do. And in the comparison with, say, Cedric and Adley Rutschman, I have no doubt the Orioles would like to keep Adley Rutschman around. But, I mean, hell, that might be $250, $300 million at this point. I don't know that you can do that for a reasonable price.
I don't know.
Right. I mean, I'm spitballing. I'm saying I certainly have no idea myself. But it does feel like this is the appropriate way to say, hey, look, but we can do this, and it's a player, much like you point out about Adam. And I get Cedric vocally will never be what Adam was because, my God, who could be, right? Like, there will be few people that will ever play this game that will vocally be the people that Adam are. But all of the other boxes that you talk about, commitment to the city and passion and leadership and the way the guys take their cues from him and being the guy that you want everybody to look at, it just feels like Cedric checks all of those boxes that you could possibly want as a figurehead leader for this baseball team.
Yeah, well, Adam was his role model.
Yep, correct.
Adam was his role model when he came up. He took him aside and he talked to him.
Yep.
So, he fortunately, Adam was a good veteran player and he took his role seriously. And Cedric Mullins is part of Adam's legacy as well. So
that's a great point.
We made an effort to sign Manny. We couldn't get it done. We should have signed him. He was one of those rare players that had the talent. The Orioles identified it where they drafted him. He distinguished himself early on in his career, and the Orioles could have signed him up for a long term there at a point in time where he needed the money.
It's a fair point.
But it didn't work out that way. But Manny could have been a core player for a couple more years. We would have had to put some more assets around him. But the Orioles do have some core players and could be competitive. They're an exciting team to watch.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Dan, if I could, the other guy that I want to talk to you about was Austin Hayes, because I feel like we saw this a little bit last year, and we started to feel like, hey, maybe Austin has really turned the corner and is proving that he can also be like a cornerstone piece. And then it kind of tailed off as the season went on, and I think we had some questions coming in. And, maybe there's a reluctance here to fully buy in because of what happened last year. But it really feels like he's developed into the guy that you always believed he was capable of being. Like, maybe he'll never be a superstar in this game, but a true quality guy that you can count on day in and day out, that's going to get you big hits, that's going to produce in situations. It feels like Austin Hayes has become the baseball player that you guys believed he was capable of being.
Yeah, well, I mean, Austin Hayes is a five-tool player. This guy can do a couple things really well. He can hit the fastball. He can hit velocity. He can run, and he's got a great arm. He's got one of the better arms in the big leagues. We saw him in the Cape League, and he showed all five tools there. And he's got some tools that are above average, and that makes him a good, solid core everyday player. And his issue has always been being physically available to his team. You hear people say that the best ability is availability.
Right.
Johnny Damon, when I signed him with the Red Sox, what I liked about Johnny Damon is that guy played every single game.
Mm-hmm.
He averaged like 158 games a year with the Kansas City Royals. He'd come into Fenway Park, and I'd have to watch him run the bases a couple times every game, run down the balls in the outfield, and then watch him do it again the next day. And Austin Hayes has proven that he can be reliable, and I think that's really the only issue. It takes a while to learn how to keep yourself healthy and available for the course of the major league season, and Austin's doing a good job with that. But when he's out there, he's got everything, and he can beat you and help you win a lot of games in every area of the game.
Dan, I wonder if you could take me through. Obviously, you have no idea what's going on as far as right now. Orioles fans are very interested. When's Jordan Westburg going to be here? When's Colton Cowser going to be here? Could you take me through what this looks like for an organization, just sort of generically, when you have prospects that have performed for some time, and it feels like they're ready to graduate, but you've also had a team that's been winning, and it's not as obvious as maybe it was for the Reds and Ellie De La Cruz, or a year ago for the Orioles and Adley Rutschman, where no one was really blocking that path. Can you take me through the difficulty of this decision-making and what goes into making a decision about when the appropriate time is to call up a top prospect?
Well, it's really not a difficult decision, right? If you have good depth, you'll have the opportunity, because over the course of the season you always get injuries, right?
It's true.
And for the player, their job is to be ready and available when they get the opportunity, right? What does Branch Rickey say? Luck is the residue of design, right? Your job as a player is to develop the skills you need, and then you're going to get an opportunity. The league's set up so that if you're blocked by one club, somebody else is going to need you in the big leagues. So the idea is to get yourself ready to play in the big leagues. And the Orioles are in a position where they have some good depth with their position players, throughout the organization. And I'm sure in due time they'll all get their opportunity.
Can I ask you about one of your other guys? I feel like we're almost starting to be concerned a little bit the other way when it comes to Ryan Mountcastle, who we know the pop, right? Like, we know he has the ability to hit 30-plus home runs, and that's obvious. But the flip side is the on-base percentage has just been an issue. And, guys strike out. We know guys strike out, right? Like, even when Chris Davis was in, the peak of what he was doing, he was striking out a lot. You can live with that. But is there a line in which you say, hey, the pop is great, but if you can't get on base at a consistent 300-plus clip, we just can't continue to do this. Like, how do you handle measuring on base versus middle-of-the-order bats?
Yeah, well, in order to be a dependable middle order in the bat, you got to be reliable. And, the key to being a good hitter is strike zone judgment, right?
Yeah.
So Ryan Mountcastle's issue is that he has to work on balls in the strike zone, right? Every hitter is better when he offers at balls in the strike zone. And Ryan, it looks to me like he has to be reminded every single day to work on those balls in the strike zone and to develop the discipline to try to only work on those balls in the strike zone. And when he does that, he'll be a reliable core middle of the lineup guy. Until he does that, he's not going to be excelled, right? What was Ted Williams say, right? You got to get a good ball to hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you start swinging at balls at the strike zone, guess what you get more of? You get more balls out of the strike zone, right?
Right.
So anyway, when he works on balls in the strike zone, he's an elite hitter. He can hit velocity. He's absolute death to left-handed pitchers. So it looks to me like he's a good core guy versus lefties, and that he needs a little bit more plate discipline to be a reliable middle of the lineup hitter. Because if you're going to be a dependable RBI guy, you got to be making some consistent contact, right?
Yep, 100%.
When those guys are on base, Hank Aaron, Manny Ramirez, those guys, they make a living by going up there and hitting their pitch, right? In the RBI situations, Ryan's got to do a little bit more of that. He's still young enough where he can do it, where he can develop the plate discipline. And of course, this guy can hit the ball out of Yellowstone.
We know that. Yeah, we know that. The power is real.
He just needs to work in a strike zone more often.
Can I ask you, what numbers mattered to you, Dan? When I bring up on base, what did you care about in judging a player? What was it that you said, hey, if this guy's doing this, then we can live with this? What were the numbers that matter to you, say, for a power type of bat?
I don't know. Everybody has their own metrics that they rely on. I like guys that can put the ball in play. I don't like to watch guys that go up there and strike out all those are outs that are kind of wasted. And, I'm not trying to be critical of hitters. Hitting is so hard now. I mean, these guys are blowing the ball up there 100 miles an hour.
Right.
And not just one or two of them. You see these closers come in, you can't even see the ball. These guys are throwing 102, 103. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So I don't mean to be critical of hitters, but you got to work on balls in the strike zone, and you have to know yourself so that if you can get a hit when your team needs a hit, that's a really, really valuable player.
Dan, I agree. I completely agree with you. I know it's not Bible, and I know that like everybody goes through these types of things. Just something that I'm trying to monitor. Before I let you go, can I just ask? It was neat for me to see you. We brought up Adam earlier. I saw you were on his podcast recently. And I thought, I think that there were people that believed that there was probably like animosity between the two of you guys at the end. Like, can you tell me about that and your relationship and doing that? Because I thought that was a really cool thing to see.
Adam, he's so funny. So when we had a deal put in place, Adam could have went to play for the Phillies, right?
Yep.
But he has the 10-5, and we offered to get a limo for his family to go back and forth from Philadelphia, right? He could have lived here and played for the rest of the season up there, and the guys up there, a lot of them came from Baltimore, right? So they liked him, obviously. And I thought it was a good opportunity for him to be a part of a pennant race, because we obviously were out of the pennant race then. But he wanted to be known as an Oriole. He wanted to end his career on his terms here, and then that was fine. I didn't have any issues. I didn't have any issues with that. It's hard when you have a veteran player that was a core player for you and meant a lot to the team and to the community and to the fans in the community. And then there comes time that you tell them, okay, well, we don't have a spot for you in our lineup, and we want to send you down the road. I mean, that's a difficult choice for the team. It's tough for the players and it's tough for the fans. So that didn't really bother me. I love Adam. I love his family. My boys used to hang out with him in spring training. His wife Audie, we followed them when they were over in Japan. I had some bats custom made for his boys. So
that's cool.
I love Adam and I love his family.
That's awesome. Dan Duquette, it's so great to catch up with you, sir. Enjoy the good life in North Carolina, my friend. Appreciate you taking a couple of minutes for us.
All right, enjoy the Orioles. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Dan. Dan Duquette, former Orioles GM, with us here on GCR. It stands out strong to me, this opportunity that the Orioles have with Cedric Mullins. And again, I don't want it to be that you're choosing Cedric Mullins because you're not going to get it done with Adley Rutschman. And it's easy to be critical of what happened in the past and the Orioles doing it with Adam Jones but not getting it done with Manny Machado. Like, this is the immediate the parallel is so fascinating to me of what's in front of you. But if you're not extending Cedric Mullins because you're like, well, we're going to need that money if we're going to go after Adley Rutschman, that's a problem too. It's what I said about Chris Davis. Signing Chris Davis can't be, well, this is the only money we have. If we spend money on Chris Davis, then we can't spend money on anybody else. Well, you're setting yourself up for failure that way as well. But you have a unique opportunity in front of you to identify the first and say, this ain't a blip on the radar. We have plans to do something real here. Let's get it done right now with this guy, and then let the dominoes fall after that. And I think the parallel is overwhelming. And you could sort of hear when Dan started chuckling, like, there is an obvious parallel between those things. Different players. I want to be abundantly clear about that. Cedric Mullins is not going to be the 30-home run guy. That's not him. The ball was juiced. Like, we can't measure him by that. It's unfair. But as I said a year ago, I thought the other things he was doing was backing up how viable he was as a legitimate major leaguer, borderline star. And in the same way that Adam Jones was never going to be a Hall of Famer, Cedric Mullins is offering you a quality of baseball player that you don't want to lose. And I'm not talking about keeping him around until he's 40, but to do a 5-year deal, take him to he's 33, 34, something like that, I don't think that you assume that the speed is going to dissipate so much that it costs him wholly and in his value as a baseball player. I get it. Like, Colton Cowser we think is going to be special, but there are 3 outfield spots. There's 3. You can figure this out, and it can be a good thing to have Cedric Mullins. And I think there is a question. Like, I don't know range-wise if Colton Cowser is going to present exactly what, Cedric Mullins presents. And while, yes, you also need to protect a spot for Heston Kjerstad at some point in the future, these sound like good problems to have. I don't know if you're going to extend both Cedric Mullins and Austin Hayes. And then at some point the question becomes, is Austin Hayes also kind of a trade chip? Like, if you don't want to trade Jordan Westburg, like, could you use Austin Hayes? Now, I get it. Who's the team that has Major League pitching that's looking for a Major League outfielder? It's a fair question to ask. But somebody would also say, who's the team that has Major League pitching that's looking for a Major League-ready Jordan Westburg? Like, who's trading you their top-notch pitcher that knows that their window is within Jordan Westburg's arbitration years? Like, wouldn't that team probably prefer someone that's not there yet? But you're not going to deal Jackson Holiday, so, it is kind of what it is. Appreciate Dan Duquette taking the time for us this morning. All right, still to come, we are going to head down to Bowie, make our weekly trip down there. Their play-by-play voice, Matt Sabados, is going to join us. Also, we're going to talk some NBA Finals with Tony Massenburg after the Nuggets took Game 3 last night in Miami to take a 2-1 series lead. That's all on the way. Today's show also brought to you by A.J. Michaels, expert and award-winning A.J. Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is here. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
The Orioles are off and running, out to prove that last season wasn't a fluke, and they are one of the best teams in baseball. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, host of the Bat Around for PressBox. Tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon as Zach Goodman and I break down every Adley bomb, every Tony Tater, and every save from the mountain. Like a warm hug from Rutschman, the Bat Around has you covered with all things Orioles as we embark on what's sure to be a magical summer in Birdland. So tune in every Saturday for the best in Orioles coverage right here on the Bat Around.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
Back in here on GCR as we continue along here on a Thursday edition of the program. PressBoxOnline.com/offers is where you should go right now to get $150 in bonus bets from DraftKings after you place your first $5 bet. You can see this and other great sportsbook offers right now at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. So DeAndre Hopkins is visiting the Titans, which is super weird. I mean, like, but why? Kind of on both ends, why, right? Like, the Titans
kind of lost A.J. Brown.
I understand that. They kind of clearly don't believe that in Ryan Tannehill because they just drafted Will Levis, but they're not committed to Will Levis either. Like, Ryan Tannehill's their quarterback. They're sort of in this, purgatory situation where they don't believe they can win, but yet, like, and this is what I always say, like, once you believe you need to draft a quarterback, just play that quarterback and figure out, because you know the answer on Ryan Tannehill. You're not winning with him. So, like,
they were the number 1 seed, right? What year was that? Was that 21?
Were they 21? Yeah, 21 they were. Like, but again, they had to have a lot of things go right for them. And
Lamar Jackson getting hurt.
And in this murderer's row of the AFC quarterbacks, it's impossible to see a path through for a team that doesn't have high-level quarterback play. I mean, like, yes, if Derrick Henry is healthy all season and is vintage Derrick Henry, there are things that they can do that other teams can't do because of that. But, again, you need both things to go right, and then only to be able to come up short ultimately in the end when you need to be able to have your quarterback beat another team. The report yesterday was this started with Mary Kay Cabot, who covers the Browns for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, who said, Deshaun Watson still wants DeAndre Hopkins, but it's a long shot. No free agent visit to the Browns is scheduled, and they're not looking to add a big-name receiver. Which is weird, right? Like, that. Like, why wouldn't, if you're the Cleveland Browns, why would you not be in on DeAndre Hopkins? Other than you just, and I don't know enough about their cap situation, like, you just say the cost is too, like, we couldn't possibly make it work from a cap standpoint. Josina Anderson from CBS retweeted that and said, correct, DeAndre will still find a home, but in Cleveland it would take a change in team circumstances and or a change in initial contract expectations, which suggests that
he'd need to take a discount.
Because Cleveland's saying that financially we just can't do it. As stated in the podcast, I guess that's what she's referring to, her own podcast, per sources. My understanding is Baltimore will monitor his free agency. Other info is there, too. Now, I did not listen to Josina Anderson's podcast, so I'm not going to pretend. I'm sure it is very valuable information, and I appreciate that. I don't have the hours in a day, and I can't assign Griffin to spend time listening to Josina Anderson's podcast. But if it's valuable information then I wish I knew it. Baltimore will monitor his free agency, in a way, is saying nothing. And she kind of reiterated that because our buddy Hoodie Ramey sent out a tweet that said, Baltimore will monitor DeAndre Hopkins' free agency situation per Josina Anderson, which she then retweeted and said, this is the job of any NFL front office on any free agent in all market conditions, which is a given. So then you're saying nothing? You were the one that said it. What are you saying? And I'm not trying to take shots at Josina Anderson, but this is very weird. Why did you feel the need to include this in your first tweet if then when someone retweeted it, you were going to say, which is basically nothing? Well, you didn't. You said it. Like, Ramey didn't say it. You said it. You said Baltimore will monitor his free agency. Okay, well, are you just saying that you could have put that in for any team?
Washington
will monitor his free agency. Buffalo will monitor his free agency. New England will monitor his free agency. Like, you could have just said all teams will monitor his free agency. You didn't. You said Baltimore will monitor his free agency. So what are you saying? And it feels like one of those situations where this is what I can tell you from reporting. She poked around and somebody said, I think Baltimore might be in play.
And it was like, that was it, though.
But maybe didn't get a response from Eric DeCosta or maybe didn't get a response from DeAndre Hopkins' camp that they had definitely had word. So she felt like she had something and didn't know exactly how to word it. So she worded it in the least, connected way.
As neutral as she
could. The most ambiguous way she could possibly word it is, well, they're going to monitor his free agency. okay.
It's like, you're not wrong. Yeah.
Right. Like, you kind of can't be wrong about that. Like, imagine – I don't think there's any way for Baltimore to be able to deny that. Like, if somebody said – if Eric DeCosta was walking out on the street today.
Yeah, someone asked Harbaugh.
Yeah, correct. It's
He's
funny.
like, wait, DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent?
I don't know if you saw this, but Morgan Adsit was standing outside the facility the other day when the Ravens hosted a public or a media OTA.
Availability, whatever.
Yeah. And I guess John Harbaugh was walking out to his car at the same time that Morgan was doing a live hit on the news. And she was like, do you want to come over and stand with me during this live hit on the news? And it's John would never do that in season. And by the way, the Ravens would lose their minds. They might still have lost their minds. I don't know, unless one of them was out there. But he was like, okay, fine. And there's no game to prepare for right now. There's nothing. So he stood and did 3 minutes with Morgan Adsit outside the facility. But in that situation, if Morgan Adsit said, hey, Josina Anderson reported that you guys are monitoring DeAndre Hopkins, he couldn't possibly deny that.
Yeah, he'd be like, well, yeah.
Right. Like, we always, whenever there's a player that's available, we do our due diligence on them. Like, you can't, how could you possibly deny that? Whereas she said the Ravens are interested in DeAndre Hopkins, then he would be able to, he would say, well, I don't know if I'm willing to go there. Like, we're taking a look at it. So I don't know what to make of it. It's a long way of me saying this is a very weird addition to the DeAndre Hopkins conversation.
For what it's worth, the Browns do have $3 million more in cap space available. They have about $15 million.
Very weird.
Ravens have 12.
Why in the world would the Browns not be interested in DeAndre Hopkins? That is about as weird as it gets, right?
And the teams that you hear, the Bills have $5 million. The Chiefs have $1 million.
You've gone completely all in, a historic all in, more than anyone else in the history of football on a quarterback. You have decent pass catchers at your disposal. Like, it's not like the Browns have nothing, but in a murderer's row, it don't compare. Why wouldn't the Browns be in? Now, maybe they're playing poker, right? Maybe they're playing a long con here and trying to throw off the scent. But you're really so committed to Elijah Moore that you wouldn't go try to get DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, like, I can see where the Browns internally would say something similar to what I'm talking about with the Ravens and the decision they have to make. The Browns already had Amari Cooper. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been a promising player for them. They drafted Cedric Tillman fairly early, clearly not as early as Zay Flowers, and they traded for Elijah Moore. So I could see where they would be a little bit split on, but I don't know. I don't know. DeAndre Hopkins working with the quarterback that he worked. Why wouldn't the Browns be in on that? Befuddled by it. I utterly befuddled by that. And even more so befuddled by what to make of Josina Anderson saying the Ravens will monitor his. Like, what? Okay? Like, yes? But what does that mean? She clearly felt the need to include the Ravens and to single out the Ravens in the DeAndre Hopkins conversation, but yet not say anything of substance about whether or not they're actually in on DeAndre Hopkins. But other than that, we've got all of the answers, and we completely understand what's going on. Hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. We have less than a week remaining in this contest that we have for you at PressBoxOnline.com/contest, where you can check out all of the area's minor league teams. Plus, we're going to help you get around by throwing in a $25 Easy Pass Maryland on-the-go transponder and a $50 gas card from Royal Farms. You got to go to PressBoxOnline.com/contests in order to enter. 6 days left in the contest. 6 days remaining for you to get signed up. Must be 18 or older. And one of the teams that you'll be able to go see is the Bowie Bay Sox. And it's time for us to make our weekly trip to Bowie. And most of these trips involve us chatting with a player or a coach, somebody like that. But we thought it was an appropriate time this morning to catch up with the play-by-play voice of the Bowie Bay Sox. He is Matt Sabados, and he is with us now once again here on GCR. Matt, it's Glenn. It's always good to catch up, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Absolutely, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
Matt, before we get to the guys that are there, we got to start with the guy that just left, right? Like, that's the way that it works. The Heston Kjerstad story to me is truly shaping up to be maybe one of the better stories in modern baseball history, because I think most of us had gotten to a point where we genuinely kind of believed that there was just not going to be a Heston Kjerstad baseball story. And to see not only him return, but him to return and be this guy is truly incredible to me, that we have gone kind of full circle back to the point where I think there's every reason to believe that this is a legitimate major league middle-of-the-order bat that could be on his way by next season.
No, I absolutely can see that happening. He's, at this point, kind of following a similar path to what Gunnar Henderson did. He got called up just before the first full series of June, just like Gunnar did last season, going from Bowie to AAA Norfolk. It's a shame that he hasn't gotten to make his AAA debut yet because of the postponements that Norfolk has had to go through with that smoke from the Canadian wildfires. But I tell you, I don't think he had been playing with a potential chip on his shoulder based on mindsets like that because of all of the time spent off, that he had been kind of falling a little bit behind in the conversation. But I think just in general, he's an intently focused person, and that's obviously why he was picked second overall. It made sense to find a guy with that sort of drive to push quickly through the minor leagues. And he's shown that even throughout the long delay into his start as a professional, he didn't really lose any of his actual development. And that's a credit to him, and that's a credit to the Orioles to make sure that they were with him throughout the entire process, even if he wasn't playing in live games. And I tell you, his intensity and his focus, especially when it comes to game time, is very fun to see. And I just look forward to seeing, once it finally happens, how it's going to work at AAA once everyone can be safe enough to play, of course.
Obviously, it's a bummer for you guys because it didn't hurt for everyone to want to come out to the ballpark to watch Heston Kjerstad for a little while. But this is the nature of minor league baseball. This is the way that it goes. So let's talk about a couple of guys that are still there, obviously. And the one whose numbers jump off the page, and again, given all of the glut of infield prospects the Orioles have had, some of which have already gotten here, you mentioned Gunnar, Jordan Westburg appears to be right on the cusp. I think, and then you have Jackson Holiday behind all of this, I think it's easy to miss Cesar Prieto. But holy hell, what has gotten into this dude? And is this real, I guess, is the question that I'm talking about. Like, this is hitting 363 at this point of the season almost at any level, but at AA it's pure insanity. Is this real, what we're seeing from Cesar Prieto?
Well, I think part of it, too, is the fact that he can fall under the radar since he's an international guy. And the Orioles are starting to really work on rebuilding their international talent pool, and Prieto has been at the forefront of that. And what's been working well for him, I think, is just a lot of experience at this level now, because he had started last year with high A, got up to AA about a little bit before the midway point of the season, and overall, while he did have good plate discipline and a good ability to protect the zone in that first set of games with Bowie last year, you get that development and you really come through on what's essentially your first full year in the books at the minor league level, or at the AA, I guess it is the minor league level for him too, since last year was his first pro year. When you get through that first full season, the comfort level really starts to set in, and I've been blown away, just as well as you guys have, by watching how well he can just put his bat anywhere on the strike zone and make clean contact on it. We're past game number 50 of the season, and Prieto just barely has passed double-digit strikeouts in the year, and he still has more walks than strikeouts. He leads the league with 70 hits in, I think, 49 games played. The guy is just a contact machine. Had his seventh 3-hit game of the season yesterday. If he just wants to put it in play, he will. I was joking with the manager the other day that I think it was not this past Saturday, but the Saturday prior, he had swung and missed at a pitch, and I freaked out on air that happened because he literally doesn't do that. And Kyle Moore, our manager, said the exact same thing. He said, wait, what just happened? Cesar swung and missed at a pitch? The guy just sees the ball better than anyone out there, and it leads to just so much traffic on the base paths and so much of a headache for opposing pitchers. It's so fun.
What should we know about him as a defensive player, right? Like, the numbers obviously offensively are eye-popping, but I know he's been splitting time playing both second and short this season. Has he established himself as a high-level defensive player at one or the other? Like, what should we know about the other side of his game?
So from what I understand, I think when he was growing up and while he was playing in Cuba, he was mostly working as a shortstop.
Okay.
But the Orioles were using him a lot at third base when he was with Bowie last season, and they're trying to get him more reps at second base this season. So that's why he's basically taken half of his reps there. But with the way that the infield has kind of had to shuffle just based on necessity for the Orioles minor leagues this season, he has had to take in more reps at shortstop than he may have originally thought that he would have taken. Either way, he is a very, very strong defender, and it was a very short adjustment period for him at second base on the right side of the infield like that. It maybe like 2 weeks before April was even out, he was looking like a very competent, strong second baseman, and I tell you, he has some incredible range and great timing on his first jump from the ball hitting the bat. He can always go for the lead runner, too. Just about every time he's having to play a ball, even against his momentum from second base, he can turn around and quickly throw it to second. It's almost always been on target. I think he has fewer than 5 errors at second this season. It's been so strong to watch him, but the Orioles also think he's strong at third base, too. And
Wow.
that's the fun thing, is that I know there's a lot of quality infield talent in the minor leagues right now, and obviously at the major leagues too, after Gunnar had gotten called up. But Cesar holds his own and is probably on par with just about everyone else in the organization at this point. The fact that he can do it at 3 positions is just as great.
Did I see that he hopped up on Baseball America's top 100 prospects, that he showed up on that list? I got to double check on that. I know that
I've got to too, actually, because I got the email the other day and didn't get to read too much of it.
Yeah, I you know what? I meant to do that. I meant to get into it today. I completely forgot, and I put you on the spot, and I apologize. That wasn't the plan. That's not your job.
No, I mean it makes me feel better that
right.
You got it and you didn't.
Oh,
check
no doubt.
either.
I'm like, and I always try to do that, and I just utterly forgot. Matt Sabados is with us, play-by-play voice of the Bowie Bay Sox here on GCR. Matt, I think the other guy that that jumps off the page at everybody that's still there, of course, is Coby Mayo. And I know the strikeout numbers are a little bit elevated this season, and it's not, certainly there's nothing about his numbers that's like blowing away or jumps off the page the way that Prieto's numbers. But it really does feel like the story to me, and you can tell me from watching every day, is that he's backing everything up. That it seems like it's really that he is just continuing on the path of what the Orioles believe Coby Mayo was capable of being. And while maybe he's not dominating the level, he is playing well enough that it's every reason to believe that the trajectory is very much still there when it comes to where his talent is.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment, and you've got to consider his age too, being a high school draftee. And the fact is that they also want him to get a lot more looks at third base. He's been taking on a new position a lot this season, and after an adjustment period of about 4 or 5 weeks, he's really shown some great play. I think it was about 3 weeks ago the team had made a trip up to Akron, and I remember him saying that I think the first ball hit into play in that game was right to him. He made a good grab on it on 2 hops and threw to first. And he said to himself, okay, this is it. I'm going to be good for the rest of the series. We're locked in. And he was. And he's pretty much been great the rest of the season. He's squaring up the balls properly, getting good jumps, and he's made a couple of leaping catches on line drives. A couple of them came his way last night when we were in Erie. But offensively, I think it's just all about the strikeouts as they aren't too damaging at the moment, especially with the power that he is able to show, because I tell you, he's got some very plus power. And the way he swings the bat, the violence that he brings through the zone is so fun to watch, especially when he can make the contact on the ball. It's just all about maybe getting, if he could share some of his contact, or if Cesar Prieto could share some of his contact with Coby Mayo, imagine the damage that those two would do in tandem. But either way, Again, you got to consider Coby Mayo's age into the fact that I do think he is progressing just pretty much on the linear path up through the minor leagues at this level. He's doing well.
Before we get to the pitchers, tell me, is there somebody else that maybe is not the name, of other guys when it comes to position players that you would say, hey, from watching them, I'm starting to think there's something here. I'm starting to think that they might have something in this guy that perhaps, the average Orioles fan doesn't know as much about.
I tell you, I liked two guys, John Rhodes and T.T. Bowens.
Okay.
Rhodes is on a, I think, 22-game on-base streak right now. He's been doing it very quietly, but did pick up 3 hits the other day on a Tuesday, I want to say. And part of a very brief injured list stint, I think, kind of led into that flying under the radar. But he's been doing very well in the outfield. Hasn't really had much issue when it comes to roaming right and left. Usually it's Zach Watson and Dante Williams in center these days. And then T.T. Bowens, he came up after starting the year with a brief injury that kept him off of the opening day roster when I believe he was supposed to be on the Bowie opening day roster, and instantly started hitting well. He's still above 300 right now over 3 weeks at the moment, and he's got some great speed on the base paths. And I tell you, he's just got some quick bat speed and some great contact. I'm really looking forward to see how the season progresses for him as we get into his first full month.
I think the 2 pitching names that are most interesting, unfortunately, from a number standpoint, and this is where you can tell me if I'm wrong, from a number standpoint, It seems like Chase McDermott is really proving something and looks like, he's very much on the way, whereas numbers-wise, it doesn't look the same way for Cade Povich. 2 guys the Orioles acquired a year ago as they try to restock the system. There is, of course, the conception that the Orioles just don't have the pitching within the system. Can you take me through those 2 guys and what you've seen from both of them this season?
It can be a little similar to both of them, that they've got good fastballs and good off-speed stuff, but sometimes the issue comes down to the location of the off-speed, and that's a problem for just about any pitcher that gets up to Double-A, because when you're working in High A, a lot of times your breaking pitches, your off-speed stuff can really move out of the zone and fool the batters enough that they're going to swing and miss more often than not. But when you get to Double-A, guys are more selective, and they'll watch that breaking ball move out of the zone and take it for a ball. And there was a stretch where that was really hurting Chase McDermott, my mistake.
Mm-hmm.
There was a stretch where that was really hurting Chase McDermott, where he had walked, I think, 15 batters in a 14 2/3 inning span. But in that same span, he had allowed only 3 runs and 3 hits, including a no-hitter. He had thrown 5 innings of a no-hitter, and he did walk 4 in that outing, but it was still a no-hitter, so it was still a good day.
Mm-hmm.
His last start was very strong. It did take a career-high 94 pitches for him, but he was able to pick up the win for the Bay Sox thanks to only 1 run allowed early. And I think the Bay Sox are starting to push a little bit more in the Orioles as an organization, because obviously the oversight there. I think they're pushing a little bit more on just maybe tightening it up on the zone just a little bit. If there is contact, there is contact, but you've got the stuff that can break the way that it breaks to make sure that you are going to get a swing and miss. But you want to get it a little bit closer to the zone so guys actually chase after it. And I think the same can be said about Cade Povich, because his last start took him 71 pitches through the first 3 innings. And that's you look at that on face value, and you'll say that it does really take a long time to get through something like that. And a lot of times it's because they'll start ahead 0-2, 1-2, but then usually run it full. And then we'll see a foul ball here or there, plate appearances lasting 6-7 pitches routinely. And you just need to see that shorten up. And I feel like that just comes with more experience, because remember, both of them got called up to Double-A for the first time only about 2 weeks after they had each gotten traded over at the deadline. So they're still only about 5 months into their Double-A career, not even 4 months and some change into their Double-A career. So there's still that adjustment period, especially when you mix in an off season between that I think they'll definitely build into it a little bit more and have very strong second halves.
All right, and then I'm going to put in a request now that maybe the next guy we catch up with, because his numbers, talk about exploding off the page. What's going on with Justin Armbruster this season? Like, what has gotten into him, and how legitimate should we think that this is becoming now for him as a prospect in the system?
Well, similar to kind of what I was talking about with what McDermott was trying to do a little bit more in his last start, Armbruster's been doing it a lot this season, and that's just attacking the zone. He's placing his pitches more routinely on the edges of the strike zone. His breaking stuff may not move as much as, say, McDermott's or Povich's. Povich has a sublime 12-6 curveball, and it's difficult for anyone on the staff to replicate that. At least that's my opinion. But while the breaking stuff for Armbruster may not be as devastating and hard-moving as some of the other arms in the rotation, it still works so well on the edges of the zone that he gets a lot of weak contact. So his strikeout numbers aren't up to par currently with Cade Povich or Chase McDermott, but his contact, the weak contact that he's drawing, has allowed him to go long in just about all of his outings, and he's been able to silence bats in the best way possible while keeping them to that weak contact just about every single time he's climbed the hill. He's actually going tonight, so I'm interested to see how he'll perform against a strong offense, because Erie, they can really hammer the ball. I think they're averaging near 6 runs a game right now, and they had put on 7 last night. It was a scary game for Bowie, but they eventually won. So we'll see what Armbruster can do today with the windy conditions we always see up here in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Bay Sox, as of course Matt just mentioned, in Erie right now, back home on Tuesday night. Lots of great events coming up next week, including, if you're a hockey fan, a fun Capitals night planned for next Friday. Anything in particular that you guys have coming up that you want to plug, Matt?
We got a Father's Day barbecue on Sunday. You can
awesome.
play catch on the field as well, so definitely get out for that one. We've got 2 more bobbleheads coming up later in the season. The next one isn't going to be until July, however. It is a Connor Norby bobblehead, so just be sure to get online to BaySox.com and check out the tickets for that one. We've got all the promotions listed there, so you can find that one and the Colton Cowser bobblehead later in August. Should be a very fun rest of June and start of July this season.
Sabados Sports on Twitter. That's SABADOS Sports on Twitter is how you follow him. Matt, appreciate you, man. Always good to catch you up. Thank you for spending the time with us this morning.
Totally. Thanks for having me on.
That's Matt Sabados, play-by-play voice of the Bowie Bay Sox, with us here on GCR. Good to do that a couple times a year and sort of get caught up on everything that's going on with the team and without that, or throughout the organization. Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Gurnsley. No, actually, there was no Ross this week. It was Stan and Luke on Monday. If you missed that, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. And then tonight, Stan, Gary, and Pat Scarry, Towson basketball coach, will be getting together. If you miss it live, you can find it youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video as well tomorrow. Speaking of basketball, Game 3 of the NBA Finals goes to the Denver Nuggets. Does that mean, we're right back to normalcy and they're just going to roll and maybe have this thing closed out by Monday? We'll talk about that next with Tony Massenburg right here on GCR.
Hey, superfans! Marvel Superhero Day is coming to Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Saturday, June 10th, when the O's play the Kansas City Royals at 4:05. Be one of the first 25,000 fans 15 and over at the game to receive an exclusive Adley Rutschman bobblehead inspired by Captain America. Come out to experience the Marvel Universe at Oriole Park and arrive early for Early Bird Saturdays. Gates open 2 hours before first pitch with happy hour, live music, and more. Buy tickets now at Orioles.com/tickets.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, AJMichaels.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson looks at the pipeline of talent still to come for the Orioles, diving in on last year's #1 pick Jackson Holliday and other top prospects like Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, and more. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles Orioles pitcher Kyle Gibson, and Bo Smolka breaks down what progress would mean for the team's 2022 draft picks in their second pro season. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Kahn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
Hey, Dalvin Cook is officially on the market. The Vikings have parted ways with Dalvin Cook this morning. Tom Pelissero, I believe, was the first to report it. Or I don't know, one of these guys was. But he has been released. Guess they were looking to try to make a trade. It didn't happen, so he is available and to be had. Unlike the DeAndre Hopkins conversation, there's just no warranted conversation to be had about Dalvin Cook and the Baltimore Ravens. That would make absolutely zero sense whatsoever. So we kind of don't need to talk about it too much. But as has been pointed out by a few people on Twitter this morning, what the fear is that he would end up signing with another AFC team that you might be competing against for a playoff spot, and that could really bolster that team, like, say, the Chiefs somehow. So Dalvin Cook, officially on the market, was released by the Minnesota Vikings this morning. Obviously a very prominent name, if nothing else. Last night in Miami, a throttling. The Nuggets take back not only momentum but home court advantage and, I don't know, bring us maybe a dose of reality to what we expected in the NBA Finals as they absolutely whooped the Heat's butts. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about that, he is, of course, a longtime NBA player, Maryland standout. The great Tony Massenburg is back with us here on GCR. Tony, it's Glenn. It's always great to catch up, brother. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Tony, it felt like the cleat of reality last night, right? Like, it felt like, yeah, that was weird what happened in Game 2, but we talked to Walt about it yesterday. I think there was every reason to still believe that the Nuggets were the superior team, and if they could just make some shots and, Nikola distributing the ball a little bit more, that felt more like, hey, I sort of think that we know at this point the Nuggets are definitively a better team than the Heat are.
Well, I've always felt like they were the better team. At the same time, I have to give Miami credit for their grit and their toughness. And while some people actually went so far as predict a sweep, I had Denver winning this in 6 games. I wouldn't be surprised if Miami can win one more somewhere along the way. But I've always said that I thought Denver was the better team. They're the bigger team. They're the more athletic team. They have more talent. And to me, a lot of this just speaks to the culture of the Miami Heat and the fact that they have essentially willed themselves into being the Eastern Conference Finals champion and finding themselves in the championship round here with a roster that, to me, is not as talented as a couple of teams in the league, let alone the Denver Nuggets.
Is there anything Miami can do at this point to change this versus like what Game 2, it felt like the story in part was Denver just was missing shots, right? Like they were getting looks against Miami's zone. They were just missing them. Is there anything Miami can do to change their reality, or does it require Denver just being off in order for them to have a path back into this series?
It requires a couple of things. It requires a defensive lapse like we saw from Denver, where they're not closing out on Miami shooters, where they allowed Miami to have several wide-open threes. It's one thing to hit a contested three. It's another thing for a guy to catch the ball and have time to set his feet and knock down the shot, and that's what happened in Game 2 with Miami knocking shots down from deep. That was a breakdown defensively by the Denver Nuggets, while at the same time the Miami Heat made shots from long range. So when you talk about what the Miami Heat can do to change the series in their favor, have to shoot the ball unbelievably well and consistently from the three-point line, which is not something I think they're actually built to do over a long stretch. And you have to have a defensive breakdown by the Denver Nuggets, because what happens is when Denver plays with the same force that Miami plays with on the defensive end, and you combine that with them having a size advantage and being more gifted offensively because they've got two of the best offensive players in the league, and Jamal Murray and the Joker on their side, it's too much for Miami to overcome. And speaking of Jamal Murray, I also think that's another area where Miami can basically give themselves a chance to win. They're not going to stop the Joker.
Not
they're
a
not going to
chance,
stop.
right.
They're not going to. No chance they're going to stop him. So you have to find a way to slow down Jamal Murray. If Jamal Murray is allowed to come out and get 30 points like he did last night, along with the Joker's 30-point triple-double, both of these guys get triple-doubles with 30 points, there's no way that they can win, because even outside of these two, the Denver Nuggets have a better bench, more productive bench overall, and the size advantage, I cannot stress that enough. When all things are equal as far as effort, attacking the glass, getting loose balls, and then you throw in the talent and the size advantage for Denver, that's asking a lot for Miami to overcome. The only chance that Miami has is that they have to shoot the basketball unbelievably well from deep to by those guys.
He is Tony Massenburg. He is with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Again, Game 4 will be on Friday night of the NBA Finals. Tony, I feel like what's starting to come into focus is trying to start to talk about Nikola Jokic's place in history, right? Like, I know we're still a ways away from that because he's an entire career, but this is a sport that, like, had passed by big men for a little while. And, you know, it's certainly, like, it's almost seemingly a detriment at the college level to be a big man. Oh, you know, like, if Zach Edey can't go to the NBA because there's not a role. Hunter Dickinson can't go to the NBA. What do you make of what Nikola Jokic has done and where he's starting to carve a place in, like, the history of this game among some of the greatest big men who have ever played the sport?
What he is found a way to utilize his size in what is now the new positionless NBA. He's become a positionless player despite the fact that his physical measurements say that he is a center by all accounts, 6'11", 280 pounds. That's a center, 7 feet, whatever you want to call him. But he is a big man who plays like a big man on the inside and has all the versatility and skill of any forward / guard in the NBA. He's a guy that can shoot the basketball from three like any forward in the NBA. He's a guy that can pass the basketball, not just like a guard, but like a point guard, as good as any guy in the NBA right now. And he's playing in a system that utilizes all of his skill set, which is passing, his ability to initiate the offense, not just make great passes to guys from the post, but he can also initiate the offense from the top of the key. So when you look at the fact that he's bringing the basketball down once they take it out of bounds like a point guard, then he can then go to the block at certain times like a center. He can also shoot the basketball from behind the three-point line like a forward. He is the first quintessential positionless big man that we have seen in the NBA, and he's doing things that we have never, ever seen a center be able to do on a consistent basis. We've seen guys like Tim Duncan, who I was fortunate enough to play with, display a high level of versatility on the perimeter, as well as be the guy that you run your offense through. But we were running the offense through Timmy from the inside because that's how the game was played during that era. We're now seeing the Joker initiate the offense like a point guard and also be a guy that you can run the offense through on the box. So he checks all the boxes on the offensive side, as well as play like a big man when you talk about rebounding, scoring inside, and making a difference overall, being impactful over the course of the game because he's not limited in anything that he can do on the basketball court.
Is he truly a unit? Let me ask the question this way. We know that Wembanyama is going to follow, but I think the comparison that's been made to Wembanyama is more like Durant, that even for his size, he's more of a Durant type of player than he is a true big man. Can other guys, like, it's funny, like, obviously we don't love Hunter Dickinson around here very much right now, right? Like, what a jerk for not coming to Maryland. But there is an amount of, like, he can step out and shoot the ball and yet play inside. Like, can there be an era of this type of player that comes into the NBA in the future, or is Jokic truly just a unicorn? Like, we're just not going to see this. This is the only guy that is ever going to have this complete of a skill set.
I think what you will see is you'll start to see more bigs. The NBA a lot of times runs when Steph Curry came in and started pulling up from 30, 35 feet on a regular basis along with Klay Thompson. That changed the NBA, and the Warriors are responsible for teams stretching the floor, essentially changing the league where everybody is shooting three-pointers, regardless if they should be shooting them or not.
Right.
A lot of times,
right.
But they're emulating what the Warriors did because the NBA is trendy that way as the game continues to evolve. What we're seeing with the Joker is another level of game evolving, and that's with the big man. And you mentioned it earlier, because of the shooting, because of the basketball, it was almost starting to get to a point where the big man was about to be phased out. But because we see a guy like the Joker, we understand just how important big man still can be. They just have to adapt to where the game is now. And I think as you continue to watch these young players in high school start to develop into, college players and hopefully pros, some of them, you're going to see guys doing or attempting to do what we see the Joker do on a regular basis, which is be a positionless center. That's something that we it's new. It's taken a while for people to accept that this is who he is and this is what he can do on a consistent basis. He is a unicorn in the way that he is singular right now. There is no real comparison. I played against a guy named Sabados,
sure,
who I think was kind of the blueprint for the Joker, I believe, because he could shoot threes, and Arvidas was a tremendous passer of the basketball. But again, a lot like Tim Duncan, he passed the ball from the post most of the time. And he played like a big man, but he could stretch the floor out to the three-point line. So the game is evolving, and the Joker is, I'm going to say, the first one we've seen to be able to consistently do it at a high level. But I believe guys will continue to expand their games. You look at Hunter Dickinson, you mentioned him. He doesn't have the passing skill set, but the fact that he can shoot the basketball from the perimeter is a starting point for him to be something like the Joker. He's never going to be the Joker, but I'm talking about guys being in the mode of being able to be comfortable on the perimeter while at the same time doing big man things like blocking shots and rebounding. And Victor Wembanyama, I think, will be one of those guys, but he displays a skill level and an offensive skill level in particular that is similar to Kevin Durant when you talk about his ball handling and his ability to shoot.
Yeah, it just seems like more of a perimeter player. Certainly somebody's going to go to the basket, but more of a perimeter player, what we've seen so far.
Right.
And we'll see how that works in the NBA. By the way, nice problem to have an ever-capable 7'2" perimeter player. Jesus, what a world we're living in.
Well, he's actually 7'5", but yeah, you're right. Yeah, this guy's 7'5". I've watched him standing next to Rudy Gobert, who is a legitimate 7'2", and he made him look like a shorty.
Oh, God.
Gobert.
What a world, man. What a world we're living in. Hey,
it's going to be fun watching him.
Tony, if I could, the local connection for us here in Baltimore with the Nuggets, Michael Malone, and it's interesting, right? Wes Unseld Jr. For a little while, it was almost like there was a Baltimore Nuggets thing going on out there. But Michael Malone, who played collegiately at Loyola, it was interesting yesterday. I got into a conversation where early on in Eric Spoelstra's run, we did not give him credit, right? Like, if anything, we actually thought it was disappointing that he only won 2 titles with that group of players that he had, and we kind of just sort of dismissed him as only being along for the ride. And now here we are, a decade and a half, 2 decades in, and we're starting to understand that Erik Spoelstra is really one of the great coaches of a generation, and is right there. I feel like, in a way, Michael Malone is not getting a lot of credit because, he's kind of along for the ride, right? The story is Nikola Jokic. The story is Jamal Murray. What credit does Michael Malone deserve for the success the Nuggets have found and what they have built in the last few years?
Well, he deserves as much credit as any championship coach. When you talk about the fact that it's one thing to have talent. It's another thing to be able to put that talent in a position to win. And that takes time. You don't just snap your fingers and get a couple of great players and start winning championships. It takes time. It took some time for Phil Jackson in Chicago to essentially get to the mountaintop with the GOAT and Michael Jordan. They had to assemble the right pieces around Michael Jordan. The same thing with the Lakers. Phil Jackson didn't win the championship every single year that he had Kobe and Shaq, but he did put them in a position to start winning once they got that first one. The same can be said for my all-time favorite coach, Greg Popovich.
Yep.
It took some time to assemble the culture and the pieces around Tim Duncan before they became a dynasty and started winning championships. And so I think you have to give Mike Malone the same cushion that we've given these other great coaches in the beginning. People forget about what it takes to get to that level, and they forget about the road that these coaches have traveled. And right now, Michael Malone has been on that road, and because he's now gotten to another conference, he's won the West, and now he finds himself in the finals, and it looks like they're going to be able to get over the mountaintop this year. He deserves credit. He made the right adjustments after that horrible game 2. He called his team out. I love coaches who have the autonomy to call out their team because, in the NBA culture nowadays, a lot of times it's risky for coaches because we know teams will, when things don't go well, the coaches are going to get let go of before, the players are moved. They don't move players, over coaches. They move coaches over players. So for him to be able to do that and have them respond, I think says a lot about him as a coach. And I think, if they're able to pull this off, which I believe they will, he will start to get the respect on a consistent basis that he deserves.
Tony Massenburg, what all can I plug for you, my friend? I know Lessons from Lenny is so important to you, but what else can I plug for you?
That's really it right now. It's summertime. It's slow time for me. And again, I'm just enjoying the playoffs and watching, for some of the moves that may be made, that'll impact some teams next year. I'm gearing up for the draft. So, right now it's just that I'm going to start my own podcast here.
Cool.
In the next month or so. And I hope you guys will have me back.
We will
publicize that a little bit. So that's really it right now. I'm just going to try to enjoy my summer and see, how much longer this series is going to go. I was really hoping that Denver didn't sweep Miami because I wanted to see a good series.
Yeah.
So let's see if they can make an adjustment, but it's going to be tough for Miami right now, I believe.
No doubt. I think you're right about that. Tony, always open invitation. We love you, and we always appreciate you taking the time for us. Thanks for hopping on with us this morning. Really enjoyed this, dude.
Oh, man, always. Thanks for having me.
Tony Massenburg from NBC Sports Washington, of course, longtime NBA vet with us here on GCR, Maryland legend. Look, man, I get it. We have every time we write off Miami, every single time we write off Miami or dismiss Miami, they come back and surprise us. So I should know better than to just say, I think the Nuggets are going to win the next 2 games, and they're going to win the series on Monday night, Game 5 at home. But, man, it's just hard. It's hard to see it. It really does require the Nuggets conspiring to help Miami in order for them to win another game in the series. And they did, right? In Game 2, they conspired to help Miami in the process, take nothing away from Miami, and an incredible adjustment that Erik Spoelstra made to go to the zone when he did, but it also required Denver just missing shots. And then, by the way, they still managed to get it back to the point where they had a shot to tie the game at the end. They're better. They're better. I don't think Miami can fix this on their own. I think it would require something going wrong for Denver to make this series interesting again. But, again, we've written off Miami a few times.
It's right where we want to be.
What do you mean right where we want to be?
Me and my Heat, yeah.
Oh, your Heat? What do you mean your Heat? Where is that?
I mean,
what is that?
I'm rooting for the underdog.
Oh, right, because we made a bet on that. I forgot about this. We made a bet about the series.
That,
Why in the world would you have ever made a bet on Miami?
Because you got me in the good, and you got me at the right time. The
Like,
show was winding down.
What in the world was that?
Yeah, why not?
It's the dumbest thing I've
Let me make it more interesting.
I guess we didn't put any money on it, so what the hell? Who really cares? But, like, why would you ever make that bet?
Well, I literally, as soon as, I think I was, driving home, and I was like, God, what?
Yeah, what are you doing? What in the world? It's just saying things for the sake of saying
What
it
is
at
great
that
game
point.
one tipped off? I was like, man, what?
Yeah, pretty silly. Like, okay, dude, if you want
doing?
Miami, by all means, you may have Miami.
Well, it's because I wanted Miami in 7.
Right.
And
but
that
the problem
was
is that involves Miami. Like, that's
winning 3 games.
They have to win. They have to win the series. They have to win 4 in order for that to come out. And I don't think that was ever going to happen. Now, again, look, things can change. Things can change. Interesting. We've been talking the last couple of days about this. Again, we thought that Kevin might have been able to join us this morning, but he's been a busy guy. So I don't know. Maybe we'll do that next week with Kevin Van Valkenburg. I got a personal request from Josh Charles to put Kevin on. That's actually how Josh came to the show years ago. Is Kevin and I used to do a weekly segment on the old radio station, and Josh was like, "Well, it's the best segment in radio." I was like, well, thank you. And so Josh stuck around after that, which I appreciate. He's my guy. So when I was watching Spider-Man yesterday with the kids, it is a very good movie. The kids did not handle well the fact that it was a part 1 of 2.
See, I didn't handle that well either.
That did not
even
go
though I
well
knew
for
it was
the
going to be a
kids.
part 1.
You know what's funny? I knew it, but I had forgotten that.
And I was like, at the end, I was like, come on.
And then I was just doing the math on like how long the movie had been, and I was like, they're not.
Yeah, this isn't gonna wrap
right.
up, is it?
Right, because it's part 1 of 2, and then I was like, oh no, because I had already dealt with the kids with like, it was a bit more intense than the first Spider-Verse movie was. Like there was just a little bit more, and maybe because they were watching it at home, they didn't feel the intensity the same way. Like there were some real like moments of tension in this film, and like the kids were jumping and antsy, and they were talking, and I had to shh them a lot because there were other people in the theater, right? Like there was like a don't do that. Like there was a lot of that going on. I don't want to give anything away. And then I was like, oh God. And on top of all of this, the
movie's not going to really end.
Right? Like on top of everything that we've already been through, it's just going to stop. And so there was a hilarious moment when the movie ends and like it hits them. The movie hadn't really ended. It was just over. And they were confused by it. And I said, well, guys, there's, and I pointed at the screen like when they showed like Return and Beyond the Spider-Verse. And I swear to God, my God bless my 6-year-old is just like, okay, well, right now, like they're gonna do.
We're going right into the other movie.
And I was like, well, no, we couldn't do that because we'd be in the movie theater for 5 hours if that was the case. And he said, I want to do that. Tell them that they can go ahead because that's what I want to do. I was like, well, no, like, but it'll be. By the way, soon's doing a lot of work when I say it'll be soon.
Yeah,
it'll be soon. Doing a lot of work in that sentence because I have no idea when part 2 is coming out.
Because this movie was supposed to come out, I think. Like, because the first one came out in 2018. I think the
was
other
it really 2018?
Yeah.
Was it
5
really?
years ago? And so like this one was supposed to come out, I think like 2020 or something.
And
now
yet
it's 2023.
In canon, and I'm using canon specifically because of it's a significant word in this film. In canon, it's only like a year and a half removed from the first film. I believe is
maybe not even that.
I think at one point he references
said,
like what have I been
15 months maybe.
What have I been doing for the last year and a half, whatever he said. Like it was something like that at the beginning of the movie. Anyway, so I was texting with Josh about it, and then I was texting with Kevin about it and the whole thing. I saw this morning that like the assumption that Liv is just going away, according to Alan Shipnuck of Fire Pit Collective, who I think is also writing a book about this and has had a few tussles with Greg Norman, like that's not how Liv is operating. Like they are operating like, no man, whatever this looks like, it's very much with a full Liv tour next season. Like they are operating the assumption of just free movement. Like players will just be able to play for whoever they want.
Got it. So
I have no idea how that works. Or
the money will just be the same for.
No idea.
Okay.
No clue.
Okay.
Right? But they are operating as if, this isn't everybody just going over to the PGA Tour, and the PGA Tour now encompassing some of the live concepts. They are operating as though they're still very much two different tours, and live will exist and might still be weeks in which live is running against the PGA. This is so insane. Everything about this is so bloody insane, and down to obviously, every element of it is so nuts. But and again, it's weird for me because I don't care about golf, so I don't. None of this really affects me in any way. I'm interested because it's interesting, but I'm not actually concerned. Whatever they do will not impact my life in any form or fashion. But it's also been interesting seeing how golf fans have handled it, who's comfortable with just saying, I don't really care. I'm good with this. I just want golfers to be playing against. I don't get caught up in who's behind it. The other thing that was interesting to me is that immediately after this happened, we saw two different reports. One, the WNBA commissioner, openly flirting with Saudi Arabia. We maybe could go play games in Saudi Arabia. What? And then Albert Breer did a report where he spoke to people in the NFL that said they absolutely believe that Saudi Arabia could end up buying a team. I'm gonna say something here. I wanted to retweet one of these yesterday and project a little bit further and say well, yeah, I mean, sure, yes, El Chapo bought a team, but think about how it's gonna help grow the sport. I don't want to say it's a slippery slope because we've already gone past that. There is the part to me, if you're willing to just openly court the country of Saudi Arabia, then what aren't you willing to do in the name of money? It used to be that there was a point at which we'd say your money is not good here. We would fundamentally shut people out. And again, our greed always feels like this should be the next concept of Succession. They should do a Succession 2, and it's just shifted from corporate greed of competing within the corporation to the greed of I'm willing to do anything. And by the way, obviously they did flirt with it. I was reading somebody's, I don't remember whose it was, whether it was The Atlantic, somebody like that, did a write-up about the final episode of Succession. By the way, if you haven't watched, sorry, you've had weeks. This is on you. And one of the sentences that was in this write-up was when they were talking about the decision that Shiv had to make. And they, not Shiv, not in character, they said, obviously she knows that Mattson would be a better company head than her brother. And the only thing I could say is what? What? Are we out of it? You know the things they told you that Mattson had done. He's a horrible person. What are you talking about? But this is how much it's seeped into our there is no right or wrong anymore. I remember, it's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to Kevin about this. I remember in the infancy of the Live Tour, him retweeting someone, one of these dude bros, or maybe it was a bot, that was trying to make the false equivalency between Saudi Arabia and the United States and saying, I'm not going to live with the argument of the good things and the bad things are all the same. We have to be able to understand there is a good and a bad, but we've just lost that in this society. It's why when you guys make fun of me for screaming and yelling about, Logan Paul or whatever, there needs to be certain things. We should be capable as humans of separating, you do this, you don't do this. You do good things, you do bad things. We should understand why we don't take selfies with O.J. Simpson at the airport. But we don't understand that. We're lost. We've given up. There is no good, no bad, no, it's just in the name of fame and money. That's all we have. And so, as furious as it would make me, undoubtedly, the NFL has to be sitting back and privately cheering this. Because now that it's happened in golf, they've got to pass. Well, why wouldn't we take the Saudi money? If golf can take it, why wouldn't we? If it'll invest more money into our business, we've got to pass here. So the slippery slope is gone. Like, it's gone. It's going to happen. And I mean this. Why wouldn't you take Mexican drug cartel money? Why wouldn't you, at this point, be willing to work with the people from Ozark? I'm asking. If you're willing to do anything in the name of money as a corporation, why not? Why would there be any standards anymore? The slippery slope no longer exists. We're there. We are showing over and over again we're willing to do anything. There's no one whose money isn't good here. Money is money wherever it came from. And we can just wash our hands of it after that. Like, well, whatever, you know.
So we're not looking at Live as like a failure, really? It's because
they in what way? They now control the PGA.
They control the PGA.
They made the investment. Like, they're going to let Jay Monahan, pretend that he's in charge. But they made the investment that it's abundantly clear. It's one of two things. It's either that they're making X amount of investment now because the PGA is trying to slow down. Like, hey, let's not make it clear that you're running everything right now. Let's allow this to work for 3 years. Let people say, well, nothing's really changed. Everything's fine here. And then you can go ahead and take over the rest of it. Or it's that they're making enough of an investment. That's how this came about. PGA is essentially capitulating to the idea of they've got more money. They can keep suing us. They can keep dragging it because they're always going to have more money. And this is essentially like Succession taught us this. You got more money, you're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to get whatever you want. You want to take over another company, you're going to be able to do it because you're going to go in and say that company has a fiduciary responsibility to their investors in order to listen when you're trying to buy their company because you're making more money for them. It's as much a partnership as it is kind of a hostile takeover. Like, they've got more money, they win. That's the way it is. That's the arms race now. And again, at a time, there would be a fight. At a time, we would say, you don't just get to have more money. Your money has to be the right money. We're not just going to do this. But once we've gone here, I don't know where we're not willing to go next. And spare me. Spare me all this hand-wringing from you. You're clutching your pearls.
So as a consumer,
I'm not even clutching my pearls. I don't actually care about this. Golf can do whatever it wants. I will ignore it the exact same way today that I did yesterday. But how would you feel about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia purchasing the Baltimore Orioles? How would you feel about that? You might say, well, they got a bunch of money.
They're going to buy Shohei Ohtani, right?
Right? But that's where we are. Like, we're at this place where no one cares about anything. Why do you have to pay so much money for gas? I'm not, and by the way, that's the least of the trouble. I brought this up yesterday when we went into this rant. Like, I have so many problems with the Kingdom. Like, the Jamal Khashoggi thing, 9/11, the whole thing. But now, tell me every time I go to the gas pump why it is that I'm paying an extraordinary amount of money for gas and that we're always protecting the oil business, no matter who's in charge. It ain't a Republican, a Democrat thing. No matter what, we are always protecting that business. Is it helping me in any way? Or is it providing them an amount of money that allows them to then turn around and purchase teams? At some point, I'm not comfortable with it. Now, does that mean I would stop being a fan? I'm not telling you that.
That's like
I understand. I understand that there are golf fans that are just like, dude, I just want to watch golf. I don't care. I just want to watch golf, man.
And so what do we do? So if once they,
I don't know. This is why I thought our institutions should hold. That to me was the point of the point of the country is our institutions were supposed to be the ones that would hold. Like, once you become a force within that, you should say, no, we don't do this. And it didn't start with golf. It actually, I think, would say with Saudi Arabia, it actually started with, of all things, professional wrestling, when the WWE was willing to take lots of money from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to come over and host events there and do all those sorts of things. And all of a sudden, that was mainstream enough that other people were like, well, if they're willing to do it, if they're getting their piece of the action, why shouldn't we? And even when Phil Mickelson, what was the quote about them being scary MFers? Even when he outright said that, everybody was like, yeah, well.
Yeah, but he's getting
there's a lot
$2
of
billion.
money. There's a lot of money. I mean, I'll do a lot of things. And it's where fiction meets fact, right? It's where what the Bird family is willing to do for the drug cartel, you're reminded, like, boy, maybe I would be too. Maybe I'd like to think that I wouldn't do that. Like, maybe I'd like to think that I'd be above that, but, like, that's only because I haven't had the chance. It's only because I haven't had that opportunity presented to me. And if I did, I mean, it's a lot of money. I'd take it. It's a very existential thing that I'm talking about. It goes far beyond golf and far beyond sports. I understand. Like, this is a very existential. This, for whatever reason, has bothered me a great deal because it does feel like we are walking into an era of this is just how it's going to be. Like, these stories that we're seeing popping up in the last 2 days, it's foreshadowing. These aren't reports. These aren't rumors. These are spoilers. It's coming. Soccer, it's already happened. And again, if it's going to happen, you hope that the people in Saudi Arabia are completely changing who it is that they are. But we are not that far removed. It's just not that we're, only 2 decades removed from 9/11. It's that we're also only a couple of years removed from literally the dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi. And that's, as I said yesterday, what we know about. That's what we know about. Yeah, but we're not so great. We do things in America. I know you're not going to believe this. The United States government does not run the PGA Tour. Our institutions are supposed to work, that we find out that someone involved with it is evil, we get rid of them. Now, I get it. We've kind of stopped caring about that in recent years. We take selfies with O.J. Simpson. We have stopped caring about good and bad.
I didn't take a selfie with
I'm not saying you. I'm not looking at you. It's just that your thing, reminded me that that's a thing that exists. But that our institutions are supposed to hold. We're not supposed to be a society of chaos. We're supposed to be capable of understanding good and evil. But we've lost. We have given up that in favor of money and fame, because fame translates to money. And I can do my one-man army bit, and I can rant and rave about it, and all the rest of you can be like, okay, cool, but how many followers do they have on Instagram? But at some point, like, we were supposed to have institutions in order to protect from this type of stuff. And we've just given up. We have flatly said, meh. They got the money. They win. That's the end of it. And there's nowhere for it to not go from there. Bleak. It's like I'm predicting the demise of the world in the moment. Very bleak conversation.
We could do a Fighting Words Express too if you want.
All right, we can do a quick version of Fighting Words.
I don't have a set intro yet.
You got to get that done. You've had weeks. This is not okay. You want to do the segment or not?
Yeah, I do.
All right, here's the deal. Next week, you got to have it in place or the segment's killed.
Okay.
Understood?
Understood.
Next Thursday, you got everything ready to go, the correct imaging,
okay,
everything done, or we're done. We're giving up on it. All right. We'll briefly touch on Fighting Words when we come back in, then we'll get a tidbit and two-bit to wrap up. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Are you a diehard O's fan looking for the perfect way to show your team spirit? Look no further than Birdland Sports. Birdland Sports is a small business run by fans for fans. They offer a wide variety of unofficial O's merchandise, from the Birds Are Coming tees to player cartoon shirts and more. And the best part? Their prices are more affordable than the big guys. So head to birdlandsports.com and grab your gear today. Show your support for the Birds with Birdland Sports.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson looks at the pipeline of talent still to come for the Orioles, diving in on last year's #1 pick Jackson Holliday and other top prospects like Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, and more. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles Orioles pitcher Kyle Gibson, and Bo Smolka breaks down what progress would mean for the team's 2022 draft picks in their second pro season. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Hey, superfans! Marvel Superhero Day is coming to Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Saturday, June 10th, when the O's play the Kansas City Royals at 4:05. Be one of the first 25,000 fans 15 and over at the game to receive an exclusive Adley Rutschman bobblehead inspired by Captain America. Come out to experience the Marvel Universe at Oriole Park and arrive early for Early Bird Saturdays. Gates open 2 hours before first pitch with happy hour, live music, and more. Buy tickets now at Orioles.com/tickets.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/pressboxonline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
All right, back in here on GCR. Today's show also brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. PressBox is offering new sports bettors the best sign-up bonuses and promos from the 7 legal online sports books. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers right now and get offers like $150 in bonus bets from DraftKings after placing your first $10 bet, or up to $1,250 in bonus bets from Caesars. Time is limited to get the best offers from all of the sports books. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers and sign up today. So let me be. I was asked just by my buddy James Wagner this morning, like, what are the likelihood that the Orioles even play this weekend? And it's a fair question, right? They played how many of the games they play in New York? They played the first game in New York this week, then they bailed on the second one.
Yeah, yesterday Philly and New York got postponed.
I mean, it certainly doesn't. It doesn't sound great. I guess
look great.
I guess the question, I don't. You know what's really funny? Like today, as I look outside, like I see the same thing that everybody else is seeing, but it does not look like it looked in New York.
No, yeah,
right. Like in New York, it looked apocalyptic. Today, it just looks kind of hazy. I don't know. I really don't know, because at some point it feels like Major League Baseball almost has to step in. Like if you're going to be canceling multiple games in multiple cities, at some point, like the idea that you're just going to be able to make all of these games up and play a ton of doubleheaders the rest of the way, like it almost feels like it would require like a pause to the season, adding a week on at the end of like something significant if this is going to continue through this weekend. And I don't know if there are rules to like what the air quality reading has to be in order for a game to be played. I don't know enough about the topic to be able to address it, but I get it. Like I'm planning on taking my kids to the game on Saturday. I bought tickets, and
I was planning on going tomorrow night.
You know, like I'm sure my wife is gonna at some point say something to me like tomorrow, like, "Are we sure that what's what we want them to do, or should we send them wearing masks or something like that?" And by the way, that's not the end of the world to me. Like the people that made masks some sort of like societal
like evil doing.
I mean, my God.
Mark of the devil.
Jesus Christ. When I talk about us having lost our way. Like, I did think it was a bit over the top, but, like, there are some times when maybe masks make sense. But it wouldn't be the end of the world to me if somebody smarter than I said, yeah, it might help you to wear a mask. Now, look, I don't know. I remember if it's hot, it's very uncomfortable wearing a mask. So, like, I don't know what the answer is. But, I'd listen because I'm an idiot. And I know that I'm an idiot, unlike a lot of people in this world that have convinced themselves because they watch a podcast that it means that they're a very smart person. I don't have a feel for it. I really don't have a feel for what they're going to do. I think they want to try to play baseball games. So unless there's some air quality reading that there's like a rule in place for that if it's this air quality or lower, then we refuse to play the games, I think they're going to do their best to try to play them. But it's obviously it's a reasonable question given what's going on. And I think it would require it literally being like the apocalyptic look of New York for the game to be canceled. But the fact that I didn't realize it was Philly, man. Philly canceled, Jesus.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It is. Yeah.
All right, let's get what a fun day this has turned into. God, this is brutal, man. All right, Fighting Words brought to you today by, let's make this one brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/contests. Go right now, sign up to win 4 tickets to all of the area minor league teams. Of course, John Colson comes in coughing just as we're talking about this. Comes in coughing just from being outside. Oh. Maybe they're not playing baseball in Baltimore this weekend. I don't know, dude.
Thanks, John.
I don't know. Just trying to convince myself that, it's not that bad.
It was a violent cough, too.
It really was, wasn't it? God, wretched. All right. Anyway, PressBoxOnline.com/contest. 4 tickets to all of the area minor league teams, plus a $25 Easy Pass Maryland on-the-go transponder and a $50 gas card from Royal Farms. Only 6 days left to sign up. PressBoxOnline.com/contests is how you get registered. You must be 18 or older in order to enter.
An interesting weekend for the fighting world, as there are fights every night, like starting tonight through Sunday night. However, they're not really too all compelling, even though it is a UFC pay-per-view. I guess I'll start with tonight. So the PFL returns tonight for their kind of second round of their regular season. And so it seems kind of notable since it'll be their first event since they signed Francis Ngannou. I'm not sure if they'll come out with any sort of announcement or anything, but there are some good names like Brendan Loughnane and some former UFC guys, Marlon Moraes, Bubba Jenkins was a national champion wrestler at Arizona State. So a couple good names, and that'll just be going pretty much all night starting at 6:30 on ESPN. So the PFL.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
But yeah, okay.
But if something about Francis comes out, I think it's worth noting.
As I said then, it's not enough that I'm not going to start watching the PFL because Francis Ngannou's there. I'm just not.
Yeah. In the boxing world, Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez are in New York City Saturday nights. So the WBO super lightweight belt. So that's a top-ranked ESPN Plus event. I think the main card starts at 5 p.m. Which is kind of an interesting start time. I think it's because Josh Taylor he's defending his belt, and so since he's Scottish, they're trying to make it more prime time-ish.
Okay.
But it's still 1 a.m. start time over there, so I'm not really sure why the 5 p.m. start. Floyd, or actually, so
where
before
is
that,
it? Where is the fight?
It's in New York City in MSG.
I don't think let me double check on this.
Or it's at the Hulu theater.
Right. No. That's where I did see that, but I feel like the actual main event is not.
The main event will start closer to 8.
I want to say even 9, something like that. I'll double check on that.
Okay. Adrian Broner, he's fighting tomorrow night.
Right.
That'll be a pay-per-view. He's fighting Bill Hutchinson as he, I guess, is still going to attempt to make a kind of a comeback.
Well, I don't know what to make of the Adrian Broner situation. I don't know that there's a next level to that as much as it's Adrian Broner. If you like Adrian Broner, you'll watch the fight. If not, you won't. The Teofimo Lopez thing is interesting because is he still in the conversation for a bigger fight? Is there still a potential for a mega fight involving Teofimo Lopez later on in the year? And I don't know, right? This is clearly just his next fight.
Yes.
But could he get he is enough of a name value that could he get himself in that conversation for that type of fight down the road? We'll see. And
he's a New York guy, so a lot of pressure on Josh. Josh Taylor does come in as the favorite though, to defend his belts. So could be some movement there around and create some more big fight. And then also in boxing,
the ring walk is actually scheduled for 11 p.m.
Really? What was I looking at?
So
5 p.m.
It appears as though that might be the undercard starts at 5,
I guess
and then the main
case.
card is starting at 8 o'clock. And then the ring walk, the main event ring walk is scheduled for 11.
That will be Saturday night.
Yes.
On Sunday night, Floyd Mayweather Jr. will be boxing in an exhibition with John Gotti III. So for $15, you can watch that on the Zeus Network. And, just kind of goes right into what we were talking about
before.
before.
I'm good.
You're good? You don't want to see
I'm
Floyd?
good.
You don't want to see Floyd in another exhibition against John
This
Gotti?
goes back to what we were talking about, that the good things, there's nothing different between the good things and the bad things. Like, no, but in Spanish. No.
I didn't know you were bilingual.
Yeah, correct.
And then UFC 289 is going to be held in Vancouver on Saturday night. Kind of a little bit of an underwhelming card.
Yeah, I noticed that. And kind of a little underwhelming stretch for the UFC.
Yeah. They haven't been really throwing out the hottest. I mean, the biggest fight on the card, I mean, obviously, Amanda Nunes will be defending her
This is
her
what
title.
happens when you run off all of your best fighters. Maybe this is what you get.
She'll be defending against Irene Aldana. However, the biggest fight on the card is the co-main event. It's Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush, which was supposed to be the co-main for UFC Newark last month, which I'm very disappointed didn't get to that one didn't play out and we didn't get to see, but should be still be a really good fight. It's kind of and really kind of not like this is Canada's first card since before the pandemic, so like just kind of really an underwhelming card for them to get. Like I think there's like really only 4 or 5 Canadian fighters on the whole card. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 Canadian fighters on the whole card, and I think half of them are underdogs. Actually, all of them.
How about that?
There's two favorites.
Okay.
Canadian favorites. So just kind of very underwhelming for them. I mean, Amanda Nunes, she's the greatest women's fighter, MMA mixed martial artist of all time. So it's kind of, and in that sense,
but that makes it difficult because it's difficult to believe that Aldana has an opportunity to beat her. Although we didn't we just feel this
with Shevchenko? That's
correct.
That's what I was going to add in is that she's like a -300 and she's -320 right now to win. And I don't think I can put her on my parlays though, just because after what happened to Valentina. She's not really fighting. She really has nothing else to prove. She's beaten everyone.
Right,
She's
I hear
beaten
you.
everyone. And in that sense, it can be kind of compelling if you think Aldana can win. But it's like Aldana's not the person. Although I was kind of saying the same thing about Alexa Grasso against Valentina Shevchenko a couple months ago. But yeah, the real main event, just because Amanda Nunes has been so dominant that there's almost less of a draw for her at this point, is Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush, as whoever wins that really throws himself right back in that lightweight title challenger with Islam Makhachev and see where they want to go, see where the UFC wants to go from there. I think Dustin Poirier should probably be up next, but this is just kind of the depth of the lightweight division is that there's like 5 or 6 guys you could really probably name and you wouldn't really be upset getting a shot at Islam.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
That is kind of the
it's a weird weekend.
Because there's fights every night that you can
but
watch
it's just
and be entertained by.
Nothing that's like so significant that you feel like it's an event. It just sort of
Really,
feels like if you're a hardcore, you'll be watching fights. You'll have plenty to watch. If you're not hardcore, it's difficult to be compelled.
If it's not hardcore, you'll tune in Sunday night for Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, that. Right. Sure. Jesus Christ. All right, let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by A.J. Michaels, expert and award-winning. A.J. Michaels Heating, AC Plumbing, and Home Performance will help you improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is here. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com.
Nikola Jokic, he's incredible. Keeps doing things that we do not have, that we've never seen before.
I've heard he's good.
Yeah, him and Jamal Murray became the first pair of teammates in NBA history. This is regular season, postseason, NBA Finals, first pair of teammates ever to each record a 30-point triple-double in the same game.
I'm not really surprised by that.
It's also the first.
Now, didn't it take like Murray getting an assist? Like he was still in the game with like a minute and a half to play in order to get that last assist, which seemed oddly Miami was back within like 10 at that point. So like maybe you couldn't just empty the bench.
But Jokic wasn't in. But
it was a little odd.
First 30-20-10, so 30 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists in an NBA Finals. Tonight is the third ever, or it's the third 30-20-10 game of any kind. As there have only been 2 others in postseason history, but it's by
Abdul-Jabbar and Chamberlain.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I saw that floating around.
You did see that one.
I don't know that, but I think I saw that floating around.
This is the first one that has been done in the NBA Finals, and Jokic did it last night. Also became the 5th player ever to have 100 points in the first 3 games of his NBA Finals debut. He joins, I guess I'll just give it to you, Rick Barry.
Ah, the great Rick Barry.
Yes, Allen Iverson.
Was, I believe, a former roommate of Johnny Holiday's.
Was he really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Allen Iverson, Willis Reed, and Giannis in 2021.
Right.
So the first players to score 100 points or more in their first 3 Finals games. And And moving into baseball, Ellie De La Cruz, 3 hits over his first 2 games. 3 extra base hits, I should say. He's the 5th youngest player in the last 40 seasons with 3 extra base hits over his first 2 career games, and the youngest to do so since this Oriole.
Say it again.
So 5th youngest player in the last 40 years have 3 extra base hits in his first 2 career games.
In his first 2 career games. Manny Machado.
Manny Machado in 2012. He is the youngest.
Because in his second game, he hit the 2 home runs.
Yes. Starlin Castro in 2010, at 20 years old, also had 3 extra base hits.
That's Frederick Atlantic League superstar Starlin Castro.
He's not. They don't have a mascot yet. Still no mascot.
No, they don't have a team name.
Oh,
yeah, correct. They're the Frederick Atlantic League baseball team.
Manny Ramirez.
Got out there, guy. What is? Oh, that's for me.
It's got lemons on it.
Well, that looks nice. It does. What is that? Where did it come from? UPS. It came from. Oh, I know exactly what this is. From John in Little Rock. He sent us some potato chips.
Oh,
I'm excited about this. Oh, I kind of want to try them now because I'm not going to be here tomorrow. Can we wait until Monday?
I mean, you're asking me?
Yeah, we'll have to wait till Monday.
Yeah,
we'll wait till. I don't want to wait till Monday though.
Do right
I believe they're from the Come and Go, by the way, which is what makes it even better. I believe he got them from the Come and Go. Love you, buddy. Thank you for that. That's very kind of you.
Manny Ramirez.
We'll try him on Monday.
Also 21 years old when they had 3 extra base hits in their first 2 career games. Ellie De La Cruz joins that list, 5th youngest.
I mean, he hit a 500-foot home run.
Yeah,
it was just insane.
Yeah,
bonkers.
Other one I want to do with Messi, obviously going to Inter Miami now. Miami prices. Inter Miami, their debut, what do I want to say? I guess opening kickoff would be their first game, July 21st. Their home game against Cruz Azul.
Have they? Wait a second. They have not played a home game yet.
Well, I guess when they're looking at for Messi's first debut with the club will be July 21st.
Okay, well that's different than their opening kickoff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know what you're trying to. I'm still confused as his debut with the team.
Yes.
Okay.
They're looking at July 21st would be his debut.
That's
so tickets were 100.
Messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I was setting it up.
How about that?
Tickets were $120 on Tuesday, and they are now $375. So a 205% increase in the ticket sales.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Once they knew Messi was coming back.
Look, that makes sense. I don't know what to say. That makes sense. That's logical. And by the way, it'll probably be like that for the rest of the year. But like, there have been stories of things like that. Dude, when Freddie Adu was with DC United, all of a sudden there was like a massive. And when that first summer with David Beckham, everywhere he went, massive crowds. I mean, massive crowds. I believe the Orioles were playing in D.C. against the Nationals, and we ran a bus trip down there, and then a few of us literally just hopped on the metro and went over, and like they had to open up the upper deck at RFK Stadium because of the appeal of David Beckham coming to play in America. It was crazy.
It's gonna.
Yeah, I get it. I completely get it.
All right, so finally, Luis Ariz is chasing 400. His batting average in the team's first 61 games I guess he got a couple more hits last night, so it's like 401 now, and so he's actually 9th on this list now. So I'm looking at the top 10 guys with the highest batting average through 61 games since 1941. So Ariz is 9th.
So you're telling me Roberto Alomar does not make the top 10?
He does make the list.
He does?
Yeah, he's just now 10th on the list.
Okay.
So he was like a half decimal point ahead of Luis Ariz.
What a time that was.
Yeah,
to be
so
alive.
Roberto Alomar in 1996, batting 399.
Okay, well, I have no idea. Ted Williams.
Ted Williams is on the list twice. Yeah. 1941 and 1948. He was batting above 400.
So how many names are there total on the list?
So you have 6 more.
And that I have 6 more to get beyond.
Because you have Ariz, Alomar, Williams twice.
Okay. How about George Brett?
George Brett, no.
That's
George Brett. I know it is surprising.
Stunning.
He must have been lower in his first 60 because we're looking at the 61 games specifically here. The first 61.
How about Tony Gwynn?
Tony Gwynn in 1997 was batting 405.
I'm kind of surprised Tony Gwynn is on the list only once, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I'm a little surprised.
Ted Williams, the only guy on there twice.
Ichiro
not on this list.
How far does this go back?
1941.
1941.
So 1948 would be the oldest name that you still have yet to get.
1948. I'm not sure that I'm going to come up with that. Mickey Mantle?
Not
No, that
Mickey
would've been
Mantle.
after that. Man, 48. All right, let me try another way. How about Wade Boggs?
Not Wade Boggs. You want me to...
Rod Carew.
Rod Carew is on this list in 1983, was batting .411 through his team's first 61 games.
DiMaggio.
Not DiMaggio. I'll give you the team for the 48 guy, but I'll pretty much give it away.
Will it?
I think so. I mean, he was a St. Louis Cardinal.
Stan Musial.
Stan
You're
Musial,
right. It did
yes,
give it away.
yes.
Damn
batting
it.
.408. Looking for the top 3 guys now, all batting .411 or better through their first 61
All right, give me something because
games.
it's 12:21 and I got a meeting to be at 1:30.
Okay, 2008, 1997, 1994, and we have a...
Oh, 94. Was that Larry Walker?
It was not Larry Walker.
Larry Walker was
Walker,
97.
Yeah, he was 97,
97.
batting .416.
I was reminded of that. It was something that we did. We did a tidbit yesterday. I was reminded Larry Walker had a hell of a 97. I forgot he was MVP.
We've got a New York Yankee and an Atlanta Brave.
Chipper Jones.
Chipper Jones in 2008 was batting .418.
Yeah, I do remember that now. And in 94 New York. Who remembers who played for the Yankees in 94? Paul O'Neill?
Paul O'Neill, indeed. He was batting .411 in 1994.
How about that? All right.
Sinking below, inevitably.
Very good. The only one that I found, and this, there's no way to turn this into like a quiz of any sort. The Royals, of course, are coming to town this weekend. I don't think that we will see our old friend Jordan Lyles. I think that, because he pitched yesterday, that he would.
He's 0-10.
Yeah, Jordan Lyles has made 13 starts. This is from Rainey Jazierli, who's a longtime Kansas City writer.
Poor Jordan Lyles.
Jordan Lyles has made 13 starts as a Kansas City Royal. The Royals' record in those 13 starts is 0-13. It is the longest losing streak in starts made by a specific pitcher in Royals history. Jordan Lyles is 0-10, making him just the second pitcher in the last 30 years to have an 0-10 record at any point in any season. You will never come up with it. It was in 2007. Anthony Reyes was 0-10.
I was going to say Eric Bedard, because why not?
Yeah, right? Why not? 0-10. That is wild, Jack. But I bet he's eating innings. That's the case.
He's going to look at least 5, probably at least every single one.
Last week, to get this print issue of Press Box, the Pipeline Primer, Jackson Holiday there on the cover. Get it before it's gone. Daddy gone. The love is gone. Right now for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms. Any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. Read it all, PressBoxOnline.com. Orioles Brewers coming up at 2 on Masson. Kyle Bradish, Colin Rea, the pitching matchup. If you happen to live Ben in San Francisco, great news for you. You can watch it on MLB Network. And if you happen to live in Denver, same thing. TNT and TBS tonight for Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. The Panthers try to keep that series alive. If they lose tonight, it's all but over. Although, of course, hockey is the one sport where it happens frequently. Teams coming down back from down 3-0.
In the finals, the Stanley Cup Finals only happened once.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Golden Knights Panthers Game 3 tonight at 8. French Open first women's semifinal is in the books. Aryna Sabalenka was struggling, but she ultimately gets past Mahova. Oh no!
I know.
Wait, what?
Did she lose or did she retire? No.
I just thought she was up by a break. What did I miss? Holy crap! Mahova came back,
and we missed it.
Oh my God!
My tidbits were too good.
Wow, I completely missed. That is stunning. So Sabalenka, who had been dominant, is out. That is crazy. Mahova on to the final. She will await the winner of. It probably won't matter because if Iga Swiatek wins. I mean, like Iga Swiatek's going to win the French Open. It's becoming Rafael Nadal-like with Swiatek. But Swiatek and Haddad Maia is the second semifinal coming up on Tennis Channel and NBC and Peacock today. What else matters? Johns Hopkins playing Game 2 of the Division III College World Series Final. They need to win this one. It's right now on NCAA.com against Lynchburg. If they win that one, they force a Game 3 later today, which will be for all the marbles. All the rest of the baseball, find at GlennClarkRadio.com. Who won Game 1 of the Women's College World Series Final?
Oklahoma.
So they have a chance
5-0.
to close out the title tonight, Game 2, against Florida State at 7:30 on ESPN. Amazon Prime, Vegas Aces, Connecticut Sun at 7. Golf Channel for round 1 of the PGA's Canadian Open. Not awkward at all. That's today at 3 o'clock. And Access TV for Impact Wrestling at 8. Anything non-sports-wise?
There's one thing on Peacock. It is called Based on a True Story, and it's Kaylee Cuoco and Chris Messina. It looks like a ripoff of Only Murders in the Building, honestly, because they start a murder podcast.
Huh.
And because there's like a murder in their, I actually already forget, but there's a murder around their lives, and they decide to start a podcast to try and figure out the murder. Also, yesterday was Always Sunny in Philly. Season 16.
By the way, thanks a lot for not being here and not sending me Tubular.
So I literally
actually did not know.
I had Tubular like set up and sent or ready to send to you, and I just
I was like seeing the tweets last night. I'm like, son of a bitch. Now on Wednesdays, my wife and I watch MasterChef, so I wasn't going to be able to watch it yesterday anyway. Hopefully, I'll be able to get to it tonight.
Also, yesterday, an Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary. It's just called Arnold.
I do want to watch that. Yes, I do want to watch that.
And that will be it for the highlights.
All right, very good. Thanks today to Tony Massenburg. Thanks to Matt Sabados from the Bay Sox. And thanks to Dan Duquette. We'll get all of that up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at glennclarkradio.com. I am going to be off tomorrow. We had a death in our family. Very sad. My cousin's son, Anthony, passed away. It's stunning. I mean, it's really stunning. Young man. Just awful. So I'm going to be with them tonight and tomorrow, and I'll be back on 105.7 on Sunday with Rita, and then I'll be back on Monday. But Stan and Griffin are going to hold down the fort, and I appreciate that tomorrow, so I can go be with my family. So thank you to them. Do you know anything that you guys are doing on the program tomorrow?
We'll stop at Delmarva, catch up with Felipe Alou, the manager of the Shorebirds. We're going to also we'll put on Stan's friend Lee Lowenfish, just wrote a new book about the minor league baseball and scouting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Kind of the death of scouting in
and
minor league baseball.
Hopefully we'll be able to avoid an Orioles sweep in Milwaukee and preview the Kansas City series.
I hope so. Yeah. All right. That's all coming up tomorrow with Stan and Griffin here on the program. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including A.J. Michaels, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, the Costas Inn, the Baltimore Orioles, All-American Lacrosse, Birdland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Thursday evening. For the love of God, go Birds, and go Hopkins baseball. Duke sucks.